Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Dinner with the Doctor. This is your host, Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil77 on Instagram. Dr. Phil77 on YouTube, I believe. The 77 is not my choosing. The 77 is YouTube's choosing. I don't know how they come up with those numbers, but apparently 77 was what they liked from me. On Instagram, you can find me just as good old Dr. Phil. And let's see where else. Oh, and I also have a Cash App. If anybody would like to support the stream, the money raised will go toward improving the quality of the stream with equipment and such. You can find a link to the Cash App over in the front page for my channel. Oh, okay. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's welcome some folks in. Oh, early, we got a bunch of folks in already. We got Peace Baby, welcome in. Alizu Pondu of Family Pondu. Well, hello. Icy847, my new Instagram friend. Hey, good to have you in. Kiki Kincaid, pleasure to have you tonight. And Jarella, hello. Hello, everyone. Hopefully we have a really good episode tonight. Foodie put out a new mukbang. I'm not going to cover it in too much depth for a few reasons. One is I talked to Sarah Jane, and she is covering it later, so I don't want to double up because I know some of you, a lot of you folks, myself included, maybe it's Sarah Jane's later tonight. But we give a very different take on it usually, so that's part of why she's going to be doing her own show separately tonight, because we might be covering some of the same content, so we want to bring a fresh take to it. All right, so let's get that on first. Our first bit of content for tonight is Foodie's recent mukbang. We're not going to cover the entire thing, but we're going to cover a little bit. First, we're going to cover what she ate because, well, let's see. Let's see what she ate.
Hello, foodie beauties.
All right, we already got one vote against Foodie.
Hi. I'm super hyper, and you're going to get it, okay?
We're not going to stay on Foodie too long. I just wanted to cover what she ate, and then I wanted to just cover very briefly one of the things that she said during the mukbang, because I have some experience personally with one of the things she said, so I wanted to add to it. So I know a lot of you folks are kind of sick of Foodie, and I also don't want to spoil the vid for Sarah Jane's show later. So let's just look at what she got really quickly. This is apparently, and yes, let me just start off with the trigger warnings. I don't think there's anything especially, that would be especially an issue for anybody. But if you are particularly sensitive to subjects about food or weight, eating disorders, anything like that, just you may want to steel yourself or maybe just refrain from watching this. With that out of the way, Foodie says she has BED, binge eating disorder. One thing I really like is that she also has a pair of ears. If you notice, look at her her new outfit. She has cat ears on. No, that's actually just the pillow behind her, perfectly matching the new.
I smell super good, and I don't know from where. Like, you ever just, like, after you finish the shower before you get dressed, just...
I don't know if that's a hijab or not, when it's that little tight covering that she has. I thought the hijab was more like a wrap. But yeah, so what did she get? She got, oh, that's right, Peace Baby noticed it too. Oh, Celebrity Juicer, welcome in. Eating a meal for two, absolutely. And I'm going to ask everybody a question in just a second. The pillow behind her does match her hijab. It does make it look like, okay, I'm not crazy. Peace Baby sees exactly what I'm seeing. It does look like she's got cat ears on. Oh, yes, Jarella, welcome. Welcome in, everyone in chat, all of the lurkers as well. Thank you for coming in, anyone watching on the replay. If you're enjoying the content so far, please click that like button. And if you would like to see more of this content, please click the subscribe button. That little bell will help you out. Where is her neck? I think it might, she might have left it in Canada. Or maybe with, maybe on the plane. with one of her other abayas. She looks like a nun. Yeah, that's actually, I could see that because she doesn't have it's not like a head wrap. It's like it's almost like a scuba hood. That's right, Celebrity Juicer. I did watch some of her fashion haul with the Chantal's fashion haul, and people said it was maternity wear. I will say that the clothing was pretty darn tight. And yes, for anybody interested, we're going to be going on to Tess Holliday soon. I just want to cover this very briefly first. The main subject tonight is going to be Fashion Holiday. We're going to be getting to that very, very soon. If you want to come back for that, come back in about 5-10 minutes, because that's about all I'm going to spend on Foodie tonight, just this very intro section. And then we're going to be going into Tess pretty soon. So anybody watching at home, just be patient for a few more minutes. If you don't like Foodie, skip ahead. If you're watching live, just my apologies. We'll be there soon. Yes, Jarella. That is the underscarf, I think. I think Chantal is trying to cover her hair, but as far as I know, she doesn't actually have any hair. Orange Porridge says it looks like it's wrapped up for an injury. I can't unsee that now. Now I'm going to think that she got busted upside the head, and that's why she's wearing that. She's actually covering a injury of some kind to the head. Yes, Celebrity Juicer, don't spoil it. Don't spoil it. That's like the big surprise reveal. Yeah, Tess Holliday. Trigger warnings, everybody. Let's get those out of the way. Chantal is not the only one flirting with eating disorders. Tess Holliday apparently is an anorexic. Apparently she has atypical anorexia, which I suppose by some very stretched definitions of the term, you might be able to argue she qualifies, but we're going to watch that and listen, and yeah. You'll get my opinion, but I don't want to give it out of context. I want to do it in context. Yeah, she looks ridiculous, absolutely. And welcome in, Blue Eyes. Welcome in, QZ. Did she have brain surgery or a lobotomy? I think she did, but I think it was a long time ago. I think it was long before she got to got to Kuwait. Yeah, she is delusional. Oh, Blue Eyes, huh? Yeah, we're going to be covering Tess Holliday later. Tess Holliday claims to be suffering from anorexia. She claims to have been suffering from anorexia basically all her life, despite her extremely hyper obese body. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. That's why that's part of why I'm covering it. And I'm surprised nobody else has pointed this out. I'm usually not the first one to catch this. Does anybody else notice anything about this meal? What stands out about this meal? Because this is pretty much one of the two things I want to cover before I move on. Obviously, yes, 2 big sandwiches. That stands out. Let's see what these sandwiches are. I'm actually going to skip ahead a little bit so we can see what's in these sandwiches. She's got this big burger. I'm actually going to let it run with the volume a little bit lower.
I have a new attitude about traveling. I know people are saying, like, I even said that myself. I'm like, I have an incentive for losing weight. I'm going to use travel as an incentive. Well, and I'm going to.
There you go. You can see the hamburger now. That's looks like a triple patty, doesn't it? I don't want to get the mouse in the way, but that looks like a triple patty on that burger. A triple patty burger. That's big. Then you got the chicken sandwich here. You can see that's a full chicken patty with sauce. If you go back to the beginning, you could see that she has what? She has French fries. And this is not just to pick on somebody for overeating. It's just to point out how severely disproportionate this meal is for somebody who claims to be struggling with food. So look at how many fries she's got here. Oh, welcome in. We got a special guest. Welcome in, Skitty. Yeah, I'm just Skitty's going to be on later tonight with a more in-depth analysis of this vid. I'm just doing a brief little quick one before I get to the Tess Holliday main feature. And welcome in anybody I've missed. I know I'm missing a few comments here going over this. Hey, Kels. Ready, set, fupa, Febreze, ricotta cheese. Oh, we got a new, nice, cute picture. Welcome in, Ready, set. And anybody who I've missed, my apologies. I'm just trying to go over this meal quickly. So let's estimate the calories out. Okay, we've got this, looks like a triple cheeseburger from Hardee's. That's got to be 800 calories or something. Those triple patties are a lot of calories because they're very heavy in fat. I think that the burger itself is probably one of the healthier choices because it's high in protein, but it's just so high in calories with the triple patty that you can't justify that for Chantal. The chicken sandwich, same thing. By itself, if she got it without the sauce, maybe just had half of the bun, might not be the worst thing in the world. But to have that along with this triple patty burger, and she got these jalapeno poppers to start with. But notice, she already ate part of the poppers and she already ate part of the fries before she even started the video. Because let's go back to the beginning.
Hi. I'm super
Look how the poppers, they're already gone. They're not up to the top. The fries are not up to the top. See?
I feel super good, and I don't know from where. Like, you ever just, like, after you finish the shower,
Oh,
before you
I'm
get
sorry.
dressed, so many products.
Let me take off the
just
comment.
This nice smell coming from. It's like a mix of, like
But
a
you
melting
can
pot
see,
of
though.
good smells. Anyway.
Look at those fries.
Right.
Look at the poppers.
I don't know you were
She
gonna
couldn't
do that
even,
'cause you
and look at the
just
cheese
wanted to
sauce.
talk about it later.
She dipped them in the cheese sauce.
All right, so today I have Hardee's. I haven't done a
So that clearly shows Chantal couldn't even wait to start the meal. She couldn't even do the video first to get it started. So she was already dunking the fries and the things. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having some French fries starting your meal first, but Chantal is recording this as content, and she couldn't even wait to start the food. So that's just, it's not a good sign for somebody who's struggling with their eating. Same thing with the large 7-Up. A 7-Up is very sugary, so, calories. Sansa Cooks already did it for me. I don't even have to do it. So Peace Baby says Sansa Cooks estimated it at 2,500. So let's do my estimate, my little rough estimate. I'd say this hamburger's got to be 800. This chicken sandwich has got to be 700. These fries have to be like, I don't know, another 600, maybe 5. The cheese sauce, another 2 or 3. The poppers, another 3 or 4. So that comes out to about 3 by my estimate, maybe a little bit over what Sansa got. But if I actually did out the math, it sounds like she's pretty close on. So I think her math's she's probably right. If she's off, she's under. You know, she's not over with 2,500. So 2,500, that very well may be correct. But if it's incorrect, it's because it's too low. It's not because it's too high. Welcome in, Pig Cadillac. I missed you there. Hold on, let me highlight your comment. And welcome in, Rosalind. A lot of folks are coming in here. I'm missing people as they come in. No, you're not late. Don't worry, folks. As long as the replay stays up, nobody's late. You can always come back, check it later. And if you are enjoying the replay, please hit that like button and hit that subscribe if you'd like to see more of this content, if you're enjoying it. We're going to be getting to the Tess Holliday segment soon. Yeah, and Skinny is looking great. She's doing so well with her diet and her exercise. I know she said that this month hasn't been one of her best months, but she's been doing so well for a while. It's just the right track. It's a long-term thing, and every month you can't be losing a ton of weight. Realistically, it's a long-term progress, and it's just moving in the right direction. So I'm very happy I fully support Skinny Queen in what she's doing there. Pig flap sandwich with plenty of cheese too, right? But yes, that's what I thought was interesting. She couldn't even wait to get started. Ooh, QZ with an interesting point here. Hardee's burgers are of the highest calorie and fat content. I was not aware of that. I know that Hardee's is something of a mid-range fast food place. I wouldn't say it's a low-end place, but I wouldn't say it's a high-end place either. I guess maybe it's more toward the low side. But it's not bad. It's just not especially good, if that's fair. So I can see that it probably would be higher in the fat content. So yeah, so please, welcome in everybody. Hope you're enjoying this. Oh, welcome in, Yelling Me. Absolutely. It looks like a container of Comet. It's going to fizz up the same way like the Comet. It's going to froth up. Yeah, 2,500 calories is a lot of food. That's basically my daily calories. What I eat as a guy, 5'10", of average activity level, maybe even a little below average, to be honest. But what I eat as an average sized guy, I eat about 2,500 calories a day to maintain my body weight. Yeah, Skinny apparently just did a haul. I did not even get a chance to see any of it. Okay, Santa says we'll underestimate a little bit. Yeah, that makes sense then, because and I'm not saying it's wrong. It very well could be correct, but if it is wrong, it's under. It's certainly not over. Triple patty is a lot of meat, and even more importantly, it's a lot of fat. It's so much fat because these patties are what, like 30% fat, 35% fat. They're probably 60% fat by calories, maybe more. How many calories in the 7-Up? Well, we can guess. It looks like it's larger than 16 ounces. And what, 12 ounces of 7-Up is what, 140 calories? Something around that. So, or maybe it's 8 ounces of 7-Up? Let me look it up. It's one of those things let me look up. Sorry, folks. All right, let me pull this up. 7-Up calories. Okay. One bottle. Yeah, how many ounces in a bottle? Okay, here we go. 8 ounces is 100 calories. So 12 ounces would be 150 calories. So I was kind of right, but I just couldn't remember if it was 8 or 12. So 150 calories for 12 ounces. That looks like a 16 or maybe even a 24 ounce. So we could say that's at least 200 calories of 7-Up. Maybe 300. So yeah, that's a really big meal. So yeah, the other thing I wanted to cover in here, because like I said, I'm leaving this for Skinny to give her perspective later, but I did want to cover briefly the part where Chantal talks about
the fact that
going on vacation.
You get to travel.
Here we go.
So
Dip in the sandwich. All right, come on, me.
Bigger appetites. We eat more. We weigh more. We have different bodies.
Perfect segue. Look who she's got the picture
why should
of.
we be left out of things just because?
Oh, let me go back. Hold on. The picture of who at Disney World? This is, and I'm glad to see she's walking around. Not any criticism.
Why should we be left out of things just because we struggle?
Oh, I don't know. It was a picture of Tess Holliday. That's what we had. Here we go. Here's Tess, and this was about 2 years ago. She's gotten a deal bigger since then. But regardless of how big she is, respect for her moving on her own. It'd be a lot easier for her to use a scooty. So to walk around on her own, respect for doing that at her size. That's not easy. So good on her for that at least.
We weigh more. We have different body shapes.
But she talks about going to Disney World.
Not a fan. Is that another cool thing? I like knowing that Disney's inclusive like that.
Yeah, she says Disney is set up for people who are very heavy. I've been to Disney World. I haven't been there in a long time. I was there when I was younger, and Disney World, when she says it's set up for hyper heavier people, I don't know what she's talking about. Unless she's talking about using a mobility scooter, it's absolutely not. There is so much walking, and a lot of it is not under shade. You have to walk literally miles just to get from the parking lot to the park is miles. Yes, they have trams, but I guess if you're willing to sit and wait for a tram everywhere, and you're willing and you have you're able to reserve a scooty, and you have I guess if you could get a special disability pass or something, then it might be good. But if you don't have all of that planned out in advance, it is not going to be accommodating for somebody your size, Chantal. If you have all of that planned in advance, if you have the scooty, if you know exactly which parts of the park will accommodate you, if you have a hotel that you know is going to accommodate you, if you have routes, if you know what times the trams are going to come and go, you know what time the ferries are going to be there, you know which of the ferries are going to be able to accommodate your mobility scooter. If you have all of that planned out, yes, you can have a great time. But that is what's required to go to a park like that if you're not physically mobile. So I don't. So Disney is very well set up for people who have physical disabilities in that sense, but it is still like any place much easier for people who are able to move around without impairment. So just keep that in mind, Chantal. It's a lot of walking. Okay, we have so many great comments. Now that I've done my little rant, let me do a little bit here. Elizu says, I've only been to Disneyland here in California, but it's lots of walking. Disney World is even more walking because Disney World is a larger park. It has multiple parks within it, and they're more spread out. So, and it's also hotter. The weather at Disney World in Orlando, Florida, I mean, Chantal is used to Kuwait at this point, so she can handle the heat. But Orlando, Florida is some brutal heat, I'll tell you. The tattoo artist lived to tell the tale. Apparently, because she's still using a lot of tattoos. She has everything Disney, like the ugly stuff. Yeah, all of the chintzy Disney stuff, right? 2 giant sandwiches, but it's not a binge. Welcome in, Camps. The binge is one of those things that depends how you want to define it, but this is absolutely overeating. Absolutely. Okay, Glitter and Lasers. I'm not familiar with her, but I've heard of her. Apparently, I know she's a heavy woman who does, like you say, does some traveling. Chantal is so sedentary that unless everything is accommodated for her in advance, unless somebody gets her a scooty, gets her a reservation at a hotel that can accommodate her, books her, reserves her positions in the rides in advance and all of that. There's no way she can do it. Oh, welcome in, Megan Fox. Welcome in. Glad you can come in. The salt and fat is what make the Hardee's burgers tasty. Welcome in, Archie. Last time I ate an Arby's roast cheese, I was pregnant 24 years. Oh, wow. Well, okay. What is fourth floor of life? 40s? I guess. 30s, maybe? Oh, Hardee's and Carl's Jr. are the same? Yep. Okay, I think we got, if I missed anybody, my apologies. Hopefully we got everybody in. Yeah, and Skinny is really setting a great example. I don't like putting a ton of pressure on her, but she's doing great. Yeah, it'd be good to catch up on Tess. Regular 7-Up. Like the famous star with cheese. I have not tried that. And Hardee's doesn't look bad. It just looks very caloric. That's what I'm going to say here. For fast food, it doesn't look terrible. It doesn't look any worse than McDonald's. Like the Hardee's mushroom burger. Okay? So let's, I want to get on to the Tess Holliday show because it's really great. So let me just get through some of these comments quickly. Oranges Porridge, welcome in. Welcome in again, Camps. Does she have cat ears? She wishes she had cat ears. That's just a conveniently placed pillow. No knees, Tess. Jolly Giant Glitters. That Tess. Yes, that Tess. Okay. Let me just catch up on the chat here really quickly. A jalapeno Angus burger is over 9. Wow. That is massive. That is really massive as far as calories. Food at Disney is super expensive. That is something I have to point out. Food at Disney is, back when I went, years and years and years ago, it was expensive. And when I say expensive, I mean like $15 for a hamburger expensive. Like $8 for a soda. That kind of expensive. Like just think of going to a major league sporting event. That type of expensive. It's so expensive that you can't even, you lose touch with the actual cost of things if you spend a few days there because it is so expensive. You kind of forget what things actually cost. You get used to paying $9 for a can of soda. That's another thing about the rides. You are limited in the rides you can do. Yeah, exactly. There is a limit on the rides. So it's very inclusive as far as being able to attend the park, but there's only so many rides you can go on. And I think Susie makes a fair point. If you can't really walk, you have to make special accommodations or you're not going to enjoy yourself because there's a lot of walking. It is, yeah, I got blisters to go in there my first day. That's how much walking I did. Oh, Megan, I would love travel vlogs, absolutely. They get free trips to Disney. Well, can't blame for going in that case. She would stop on every corner to eat. Chantal would gain weight going to Disney, no matter how much walking she did, because they have so much food everywhere you go in there. So I would be the one standing in the lines. Absolutely. Yeah, it's huge. Epcot, Animal Kingdom. She could be the Hulk ride. That's over in That's in the Islands of Adventure next door. No, Megan Fox, you're close. It's right next door. Scooties do have weight limits, Susie Q. That's a good point. The Scooties they have maybe for people who have like paraplegic types, people who are not, they may only have a limit on the number that are for people who need them for weight purposes. Oh, that's interesting to know, Celebrity Juicer. So Chantal would have difficulty getting it. She would have to just kind of get in line for one and hope to get one. That's interesting. I mean, I think that's a good thing though, because it's too many people would grab them. They wouldn't be able to provide enough if they didn't have some way to limit the people who could get them. Okay, well that's good. That's good for her. I don't know Anna well, but if she's reducing her girth, I think that's fantastic. Yes, oranges. The rides do have weight limits. I went there when I was, I want to say, well over 200 pounds, and I was able to get on all of the rides, but some of them were a bit of a tight fit. For me, I'd say it was about 240, 250, maybe even more than that. But that was where the rides started becoming a tight fit. But you have to keep in mind, I'm taller than Chantal. I'm 5'10", so 5'10", 240 was about the limit for a lot of the rides from what I remember. I mean, I was able to fit in, but it was a tight squeeze. She was scared to go on even one ride with Salah. Wow. Yeah, exactly. If she cannot fit in, she cannot ride. My apologies. I'm missing some $10 for a Coke in 2009. That's what I remember. Just crazy. Denise says, oh, welcome in, Denise. Prices were unreal 3 years ago. That would be frustrating, oranges, to get there and not be able to go on the rides. There's some rides with no weight limits. Oh, Megan, you're so sweet, Megan. Thank you for coming in, by the way. Always a pleasure to have you. 4 miles, fantastic. See, now Megan can hit up Disney World easy, because if you can walk, you will walk 2 miles easily. If you get there first thing in the morning and you want to hit up all the rides, you'll be there for 2 miles easily. That's with taking ferries and stuff. Oh, wow. I was not aware of that. I never really eat there. Yeah, I never saw, when I went to Disneyland, I saw some really big people, but I didn't see, to be fair, I was probably one of the heaviest people on the rides, because I was heavy, but I wasn't so heavy that I didn't fit on the rides. But it was, I mean, there's definitely a weight limit. There's an upper limit, and it would be very frustrating to not be able to enjoy the rides because of that. So it would be, you can't really get your full money's worth asking for an extension seatbelt. It's not so much the seatbelt, it's more that the chair itself is only so wide, because it has to be able, the chair can't be loose. It has to be able to, on things like roller coasters, the chair has to be pretty snug so that you don't get jostled around, because you'll get bruised up. So they make the chair kind of snug, and that makes it tough to fit so many people. Bring your own Scooty. If they allow that would, I mean, I don't know if she could, but if they did. Already said she went to a Six Flags type of place. Okay, so 260 for Ready Set. That was about the weight limit for me too, where I was able to make it in, but it was very snug. So that seems to be, yeah, I want to say about the mid 200s is where you can get into the rides. I'll say Disney is great if you love the Disney properties, but if you're there just for a theme park specifically, it's probably not the best one, especially for the price. It's because it's so darn expensive. Islands of Adventure, I remember being a great value, but that was over 10 years ago, so I couldn't say if it's that great. Oh, no problem, Skinny. Glad to have you. And welcome in to anybody I've missed. Welcome in again, Archie, Pink Cadillac, Ready Set, Oranges, QZ, welcome in. Susie Q, welcome in. Welcome in, everybody. Okay, so I think it's time to get started with the test video. Enough of this foodie intro. I want to save this more for Skinny as well. We did our little talk about Disney World. So let's do the, let me set this up. Hold on. Okay, I got this video from Kiana, either Doherty or Doherty. I'm not sure how she pronounces her name. Let me change this real quick. Okay, let me get the volume here. I'm going to put the volume, I'm going to put the playback speed slightly increased. Okay. Okay, it looks like we can view it. So let me do my little intro here. First off, Doctor disclaimer, I am not really a doctor. If you think you need a doctor, please go get one. Any opinions or advice I give, it's just me as a private citizen here, not claiming to be a doctor or have any formal medical training. Now we got that out of the way. Also, call this Fashion Holiday. This is a documentary. It's actually called something else. Let me put a link to it in the chat. I also have a link to it in the description. Want to give credit where it's due. Kiana Doherty perhaps. I really should have looked it up first. She does some pretty good stuff. I enjoyed this vid. I have to say I haven't watched a ton of her content, but I thought this one was solid. So definitely go check that out. So let me catch up on a few of your comments, and then we'll run it. Yeah, there's no way Foodie will be able to get in. It's just not happening. The ride limit is about exactly Pink Cadillac. 240 at 5'10 is not a crazy, you know, I was able to fit in fairly well, but 240 but you know, Foodie is what, 400 at 5 feet? There's no way that she could fit in. To be fair, she couldn't even safely step onto the rides. Because keep in mind, a lot of times those rides, you have to get on a step just to get into the cart. Now, I know they make some of them, the slower ones, they do make some of them where if you have a wheelchair or a scooty, you can go onto it's like a conveyor belt kind of, and they can just kind of put you in there. But some of the rides and things are it's just not possible. It's just not safe. Yeah, so Pink Cadillac, I totally get what you're saying. Okay, yes, and Skinny will be on later, everybody, so definitely check her out, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. I hopefully will be running into her, but if for some reason I have to leave early, I encourage everybody to go check that out afterward. And if you're watching the replay, go check out her replay. Okay, so let's hear about the toxic world of Tess Holliday and fat activism from Kiana Doherty. I think a pretty interesting thing.
One day, I found Tess Holliday, and Tess Holliday looked amazing to me.
People like her are really, really changing society, and I want to be like her.
The way she loves herself and her body and doesn't care what anyone says about it. And she inspires me, she motivates me.
She had like all this makeup done, and her hair was pretty, and you know, like she looked so glamorous. I wanted to be like Tess Holliday.
And let me get something out of the way first. I think Tess can be a very pretty girl at times. I think that, especially when she was in her modeling prime, for her size, she was very pretty. And I think that the way her weight is distributed, it never really went to her face. Didn't matter how big she got, her face always looked very youthful and very, very attractive. But she's really gotten just so darn heavy that she's kind of sized out of the modeling. And from my understanding, she hasn't had any professional modeling gigs since forever. The only modeling gig that she really has now is a brand called Fabletics or Flabletics or something. I think they jokingly call it that, where she pretends to exercise once a month. She kind of puts on the exercise clothes and she poses at a gym and just kind of does some stretches and sits on and does a photo shoot. And that's essentially all the modeling she does at this point, just for a discount code on Instagram or something. She's not really a professional model anymore. She mostly, from my understanding, and I don't want to defame anybody, I don't know if this is true or not, this is just a rumor. Allegedly, it's possible that she does feeder content. And that's how she makes her real money, because she posts a lot of videos of her eating. And she doesn't do a vlogging mukbang channel, nothing like that. She allegedly calls herself a model still. But she posts more content of her eating than she does modeling, at least modeling clothes that she's been given to model. I guess technically anytime you wear clothes, you're modeling, but that's different. Okay, so that's, so Tess has not really been a legitimate model for some time. And so I just want to get that out of the way. So clean and pretty. At that time she was. Tess, a lot of people were introduced to Tess, 10 years ago now? That was when she was on the cover of some big magazines. That was a long time ago. So let's get a look at how she is now and a little bit of what's more current. See where she actually is and what she's saying.
The Health at Every Size movement, or HAES, has been around for a long time, but has exploded in popularity over the last few years, with more and more social media posts such as these every day.
Can everyone hear
It's not the
this?
fat that kills us, it's the fat hatred. Health status is not defined by weight, so weight loss programs are about aesthetics. Your weight is not the problem, food is not the problem, diet culture is the problem. I don't have an eating problem, I have a fat phobia
Welcome
problem.
in, Big Cadillac.
Or my personal favorite, BMI is government propaganda. At the most extreme end, Health at Every Size supporters and fat activists
Let me
argue
comment about BMI very briefly. BMI is something I think that people have I think people put too much place too much importance on it, but at the same time you shouldn't ignore it either. BMI is a tool. It's a way of estimating your overall body weight for your height, but it's not something that is an accurate measurement for everybody. If somebody's very muscular, it could be off. Some people just naturally are bigger boned, it's going to be off. But if your BMI is really, really high, it's probably a bad sign. So I don't think it should just be completely ignored. That's my stance on BMI. Hopefully that's not too strong of a stance there. Hopefully I didn't.
that obesity is not dangerous, and that bodies naturally come in all shapes and sizes.
There we go. This is what I mean. I'm not somebody. I think that there's plenty of room for personal difference. I don't think everybody has to be super skinny to be healthy. I think people can have. There's a variety of healthy weights for different people, but I think we can all agree that once you get up on this end of the spectrum, you're not really that healthy anymore.
All the way up to 600 pounds, or what would be called infinity fat, according to them. Some even call the obesity epidemic a myth. They say it doesn't kill people or cause disease.
We hear in the news all the time about an obesity epidemic and how people are dying of obesity. And what we see is that it's just not true.
Susie.
According to them, the diseases we often attribute to obesity, such as diabetes and hypertension, are the result of weight stigma, the psychological pressure of living in a society that mistreats fat people, and not due to the excess weight itself. Many HAES supporters go as far as to say that the war on obesity is a form of eugenics. And gastric bypass is, quote, voluntary amputation. And they're campaigning to have the word stricken from the medical literature and classified as hate speech. At this point, you might be saying to yourself, how is it possible that something so preposterous has become almost mainstream? And surprisingly, the answer seems to be Tess Holliday.
Believe it or not, Tess Holliday, I'm not trying to blame her for everything, but she was probably one of the first people to really popularize this stuff. And I also have a personal belief that Foodie idolizes Tess Holliday. I do. I think Foodie wishes that she was a fashion model. I think that she sees herself as Tess Holliday. She's a similar height to Tess. At this point, she's a similar weight to Tess. She even has a similar vapid personality as Tess. So, some of the stuff here, what they're saying is really just, it's hard to believe even that people were saying some of that stuff. It's so extreme. But there are some crazy people saying that stuff online. It's hard to believe, but there are. There really are some people who do believe in that stuff. That obesity is perfectly healthy. And I could see that Ready Set Fupa. Some people, their body weight is not consistent always with what one would expect. She doesn't have the sexy. Foodie is a human weeble wobble. Watch the vid of her hopping on the rocks like a penguin. Both have the pretty privilege. Let's let it keep going. Let's hear the privilege. And I'm slowing it back down to normal speed. If anybody would like me to speed it back up, I can. But I feel like the host here, Kiana, I feel like she speaks at a pretty good clip, and I don't want to go too fast. I want people to be able to hear it.
Today we'll be discussing Tess Holliday, the biggest and most dangerous lie of Health at Every Size, namely that morbid obesity can be considered healthy, and the research or lack thereof that's used to support these claims. I hope you guys enjoyed my double intro. This video actually started off as a way more casual video, but the more I read and the more I saw, the more I was like, nope, I'm gonna drop everything and make this gigantic video about Tess Holliday and health at every size. I've labeled everything with timestamps, so if you want to hop around or rewatch stuff, it should be pretty easy to do so. We're gonna get into a lot of stuff today, but before we do, I should say a few disclaimers up front. Throughout this video, I'm going to be using the terms fat activist, health at every size supporter, and body positivity person to mean the same thing. There is a distinction between these groups and they're not all, harmful. But that line is very blurry online, so I'm going to be using them interchangeably during the video. I also want to say that there are definitely people practicing health at every size a lot more reasonably than the depiction you're about to see here. I went into this video thinking that Hayes was going to be a lot more reasonable than I've seen it portrayed by the extremists online. But I actually ended up leaving it thinking that it was even more harmful than I thought. And you guys are going to see why today. All right, let's...
I think this lady here, Kiana, I think she does a pretty fair assessment. Like she said, she didn't go into it with a negative attitude. She went into it trying to be more positive and kind of came out of it with unfortunately, a negative interpretation. And yes, health at any size, that's what, or every size, excuse me. It does not exist for there is kind of an upper limit to the size at which it's possible. I think it's definitely possible to have a little more meat on the bones. I myself, even right now, I think I'm at a healthy weight, but I'm pretty close to obese technically. If you were just to go by the numbers, I'm carrying around 20% body fat, so I'm on the chunky side according to the charts. But I feel just fine. I don't feel like I need to lose any further weight. I probably could lose a little more. But there's nothing wrong with having some meat on the bones. But there's an upper limit. And I think that people are kind of forgetting that and are intentionally ignoring that. Elise likes Kiana. Okay, I don't really know her too well, but I like this vid, so I felt it was worth sharing. Yes, Skinny. Some plus-size influencers are no longer with us, and hopefully they can have influence in that way. At least that way they can serve as a positive influence in some way. Healthy is a state of mind. I agree with that. Healthy is a state of mind. I think there's absolutely a physical component, but mental is a component as well. You can't have a healthy body without a healthy mind. You see that all the time with some of these fitness people passing away at very young ages. Just this guy the other day, Joe Lindner, Joe Stedix, he passed the other day. He was 30 years old. He had basically no body fat. You could see every muscle on his body, and he passed at 30. People could debate exactly what caused it, but he had some kind of body dysmorphia where he was always trying to look better. He was always convinced he was fat. He always convinced he was too small. He needed more muscle. He needed to be bigger, more cut, and he ended up harming himself. So it was really unfortunate. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, exactly, Camps. I think that's a good point. Okay, so let's hear what Kiana has to say.
Let's get started.
Tess Holliday made waves in 2015 as the first size 22 model to be signed to a major agency.
It's something I wanted to do my whole life.
2018. Let me go back. I want to hear what you're.
Tess Holliday made waves in 2015.
2015. Okay, so this was a while ago, back when she. I believe this first picture here.
Tess Holliday.
This, I think, was when she first came on the scene. This was before her weight had really got out of control. She was heavy at the time, but she's really gotten much heavier since.
Made waves in 2015 as the first.
Here, from my understanding, was her last appearance on a professional runway. This time here in this picture. This was when that she apparently she was too big to fit in any of the clothes that they brought for her. She didn't tell them her actual size. She told them she was one size. She told them she was her old size, basically. She said, I'm my old size, when in reality she had gained a great deal of weight. You can see for yourself, she's much bigger here than she was in that last video. And they didn't have any clothes that fit her. and they just tried to, put something together at the last minute. She came out, she walked the runway really quickly, and that was it. That was the last time she walked the runway, and she's never had a professional modeling gig since then, as far as I know. Maybe she has, but nothing major. Exactly, Pink Cadillac. I don't think they were doing that to make a statement. I think that's actually, that's all they had. They had to try to pull something together that would fit her.
Size 22 model to be signed to a major agency.
It's something I wanted to do my whole life,
Right.
and everyone always told me I would never be able to do it.
Right.
They laughed at me, they made fun of me.
Right.
And
Exactly. And again, they also, Archie, let's keep in mind, she's a professional model. When you're a model, your job is to know your size. Your job is to tell the people your size. That's what makes a model. That's the difference between a model and just picking somebody at random out of the audience. That's why they hire models, because they say, hey, we have clothes in this size. We want somebody to model them. Are you this size? Great. Are you a little bit bigger? Okay, we'll let them out so they fit you properly. You can't tell them you're one size and then get there if they don't measure. Then you find out, oh, well, these don't actually fit. Well, what do we have that fits? Well, she's not even close to the size that she the old size that she was. So, I guess they measured her when she got there, but it was kind of from my understanding, she didn't show up. Nobody had seen her or something like that. Nobody had seen her prior to the event. She was off on her own. So nobody knew. Everybody just assumed that the size that she was the same, or she told everybody she was still the same size. That's alleged. I don't know if that's true or not. But yeah, nobody had seen her for a while. But it was like over a year or something between the last time she had modeled professionally. So exactly. She got there and they're like, what the heck? You're not anywhere near the size you said you were. We don't have anything that's going to fit you. Because it was not a plus size show either. This was a straight size show. And I believe she was the only plus size model at the show. So it's not like they had other clothes that were anywhere near what size. They brought clothes specifically for her, from my understanding. So they were really upset when she was not able to model any of the clothes that they had brought just for her, because I don't think they had another plus size model lined up.
And I don't know if it was like delusion, but I just was like, I'm gonna try.
Since then, she's been called the world's biggest supermodel, worked with big brands like H&M and Benefit Cosmetics, and named one of the most influential people on the internet by Time magazine. And by 2018, she had already landed the now infamous cover of Cosmo UK.
Did you see the cover of Cosmopolitan magazine that was widely criticized because they had a morbidly obese woman on?
Many people say they love the body positive move made.
I'm just gonna. A lot of people. I probably should point this out. The fashion industry has a lot of issues with sizing and body issues, and I'm not gonna get into all that. But I definitely agree. If anybody wants to say that, I am in agreement. The fashion industry has way too many problems. They have this crazy idea of what a healthy size is that is absolutely absurd. It's I'm not even going to get into that, but it's the inverse of the healthy at every size thing. It's the opposite, where everybody is way too small and unhealthy, and well, not everybody, but you get what I mean. Where it's completely the opposite. It's the Eugenia Cooney problem. I'll say it like that. That's the nice way to say it, I guess. And that's an interesting point, Pink Cadillac, but that makes a lot of sense. That they want, clothing. That's what I heard too, that they want the clothes to kind of hang off like a hanger, and they don't want to draw attention, the models to draw too much attention away. That's why they don't want them to be too sexy. They want the models to be just more kind of, they want the clothes to draw the attention. Oh, that's what I've heard, at least. I'm not a
by Cosmo UK. Others say Tess Holliday is an unhealthy representation.
You are celebrating. You are celebrating morbid obesity.
I am not celebrating
That's what you're
morbid
doing.
obesity.
You want
This is one cover which has a larger lady on the cover in a sea, in a world, in a culture which has venerated, since I can remember, thinness.
Seeing someone like me on the cover of like a glossy magazine shouldn't be top news.
They're hailing her as brave. I mean, what's brave about, you know, eating ice cream?
She's literally morbidly obese. She's fucking dying. She's addicted to food in a horrible way. And to promote that and pretend that somehow or another this is okay.
Clearly, there were some mixed reactions. Some people saw Tess's cover as a special moment for body positivity, while others went as far as to say it was glorifying obesity. The term glorifying obesity is thrown around a lot these days, and not always appropriately.
When 1/3 of Ashley
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that, and it's frustrating because it feels like they've gone from they went from one set of very unrealistic and unhealthy expectations, and now they're almost just deciding, okay, well, we're gonna completely skip over anything like a healthy body weight, and we're gonna glorify the heaviest person we can find, with the complete opposite. I'd like to see more people at just I guess a moderate size would be a nice way to put it. So, yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's an upper limit. Oh, that's horrible to hear. Ready, set. Yeah, there needs to be a healthy point.
Graham was featured on the cover of Vogue, glorifying obesity. When Nike rolled out a plus-size mannequin so fat people could exercise, glorifying obesity. When Mattel offered up a curvy Barbie, size 8, US medium, glorifying obesity. Every plus-size girl dancing around on TikTok, glorifying obesity. As you can see, there is quite the range here. And there is a distinction between being fat and living your life and pretending that obesity is no big deal. Except that in Tess' case, it kind of actually was glorifying obesity for real this time. At 5'5" and over 300 pounds, Tess Holliday is by far the biggest model to have ever graced the cover of a major magazine.
I've thought about this a lot, and I don't know that it's fair to say that Tess's cover is problematic in of itself. After all, having a particularly admirable or healthy lifestyle hasn't exactly ever been a prerequisite to be a model or celebrity. And in many ways, if you think about it, unhealthy lifestyles have been glamorized forever at this point. Now, is that a good thing? No, none of this is good. But I think to be disproportionately offended because an obese woman is on the cover of a magazine is, I think, unfair.
And actually, Tess had already been on the cover of People magazine in 2015, which by readership is 5 times larger than Cosmo UK, without nearly the same level of controversy. The difference in outrage seems to stem from the fact that Cosmo felt the need to devote an entire page to declaring that Tess was strong, fit, and 300 pounds. And most of the discussion revolved around her excellent health and workout regime, as opposed to her fight for body positivity and self-love.
Thing is, though, her workout regime, from my understanding, was a fiction. This was just something that she did for the magazine. She was not somebody who regularly exercised at all, from my understanding. Also, the 300 pounds is a questionable claim. So I think that's worth the, pointing out the fact that they're claiming that she's in good health, but this exercise thing was just for the camera, from my understanding. This is not how she lives her life.
I know we've been putting this off for a little bit, and
like this trainer, as far as I know, she's never met this person before or after. Like, where do I have all this knowledge? I used to, there was a great thread on Kiwi Farms about Tess. It's down right now. But there was a lot there, and it had a lot of her history, her posts, and you could see that she posted regularly on Instagram, and all she ever posted was herself eating. And I'm not being facetious either. Literally, 90% of her posts were her eating. And when I say eating, I don't mean eating healthy stuff either. I mean doing the eating like foodie, self-destructive kind of eating. So it's hard to believe that she was spending all this time in the gymnasium when nothing is actually indicated that.
Oh, it's time to talk.
My goals are just to feel better and be stronger.
Tess
And
does
also
have
show
nice hair.
people that
I'll
fat
agree with
girls
that.
work out.
Showing people that fat girls work out is a big thing for Tess. She chose a
Agreed.
famous personal trainer. They both made announcements about it on their Instagram.
I think Kiana here has nice hair too. I think Tess and this lady both have nice hair. This lady has nice eyes too. All right, now we can get back to being mean.
Accounts.
No, we're not getting back to being mean. We can get back to just being whatever.
They shot multiple videos while they were together, and they even shot that People TV segment in just the few short months that they were working together. Now, Tess has a running sponsorship with Fabletics, and since that time, I haven't seen any videos of her working out.
Exactly.
So I guess the photo.
Thank you, Kiana. Tess has a sponsorship with Fabletics. Okay, so it is Fabletics. I've heard them called Fabletics. I always thought that was funny. I didn't know if that was actually their name or not. Here, it's Chantal posting. Oh, it's not Chantal. Maybe that's Aisha from Chantal's chat. I don't know. But she said she's feeling like a fat version of Angeline out in these LA streets. Maybe you folks know who Angeline is, that woman from the Billboard. I think she was some kind of a model. She says she's wearing a 3X or a 4X, but apparently she doesn't ever actually exercise this Fabletics stuff, and she never really wears it either, except in these photo shoots she does once a month. So it's just, it's all for the camera, and it's misleading people. And people want to be misled, that's fine. But I think that it's still important to have a core of reality behind it.
Photo shoots in athletic clothes are meeting her quota for showing people that fat girls work out, because she has totally stopped with that. All in all.
Okay, I keep interrupting the video, but I have to interrupt just once more, and we'll let it run for a second. But oranges, yes. I think that I don't want foodie taken off the internet or anything like that. Because I think it's important that I think she serves as a good example of what not to do in a lot of ways. And as long as we can say what we, give our honest opinion, then I'm all for it. But yes, foodie, if people believe her, if there was nobody questioning her, if there was nobody addressing how clearly she is misleading people, she would be very dangerous. If she had a big squad of beezers all endorsing her, and there was no reaction, there were no reaction channels to call out her BS, she would be influencing people in a very unhealthy way. She'd make people think that, oh, you could eat all this food and somehow lose weight. Some people want to be lied to, or some people just aren't as incisive as others, and they're more easily misled. And foodie is no problem taking advantage of that. We could be mean, Archie. Absolutely, we could be mean. Yeah. And if I'm being nice, that's partly just because I'm the one doing the show and I want to set a tone. But you people can absolutely say what's on your mind. Just try not to start any fights with each other. But other than that, you're more than welcome to talk. I mean, don't bring up anything that's controversial. But as far as just being honest with your opinions on things, yeah, say what you feel. Absolutely. Okay, so let's. Yes, that's why the reaction channels I think are so great. Hey, if they're comfortable, they look good. What's wrong with that? If a sports bra looks good, it holds you in. Why not wear it?
It just feels very contrived to me. I feel like it's one thing for Tess Holliday to be on the cover of a magazine for any reason, because she validates plus size women, because she's popular, because you want to be controversial to sell more magazines. Whatever. But something completely different when Cosmo takes a stand to validate Tess's delusion that she's healthy to millions of people, and then goes as far as to shove it down our throats with 3 pages about her workout regime, as opposed to making the article literally about anything else.
The problem with this is, Cosmo just put mainstream media's stamp of approval on one of the most heinous lies of health at every size. The preposterous untruth that morbid obesity can be considered healthy.
What about your own health test? Do you ever...
Let's quantify that, or qualify that. Maybe quantify, because we are talking about numbers in a sense. Numbers, if Rudy's here. I saw Rudy earlier. Welcome in, Rudy. And if you're listening, we got some numbers. Morbid obesity. Let me pull up a document I have. Body fat percentage. We see here, we'll use women as an example. Tess is, what, about 40? Something. Now she's 40. She was in her 30s at that time. This chart here, I think, is overly strict. I think that if you're in this range right here, you're probably okay. And I'm not a doctor. Let me put up my disclaimer. I'm absolutely not a doctor, so if don't say that, well, Dr. Phil said it, so that makes it okay. No, I'm not a doctor. Don't blame me. But that said, I don't think that this right here is necessarily a dangerous range. But once you get over this top range, you do start getting heavy to the point where you do have a real increased health risk. Tess is far beyond this. This isn't anything Tess is anywhere near 30% body fat. Tess is probably like 70% body fat, something like that. You know, she's so far beyond this. So it's that's the issue. That's the issue. that she's well beyond this number. So she could not be healthy once you get to that weight. That's the issue. So for her to claim that she's healthy at that weight is just not true. It's just not true. So let me pull back this one here. Share this tab instead. Okay. Let's keep going.
You know, because we had a report very recently in this country saying it's a myth that you can be very overweight, obese, and be healthy. So do you worry about your weight? You've got young children. Do you worry about your health?
Look, I would not go through having kids and what it does to your body to not be around for them. You know what I mean? I know that I'm healthy.
Being a healthy, extremely obese person is an oxymoron, point blank. And it is extremely dangerous to suggest otherwise on talk shows and the front of magazines. So this was a caption from one of Tess's Instagram posts, which has since been removed but was cataloged on a website. To say and actually believe things like, if you're fat, you're automatically unhealthy, is wildly inaccurate. You can absolutely be overweight and be healthy, I know.
Okay, see, that's something here. This statement is correct. You can be overweight and be healthy. But Tess is not what we would call overweight. I just showed you that chart a minute ago. Overweight is like 5 magnitudes of obesity below where Tess would be. When I say magnitudes, I mean categories. Like if being slightly overweight is one category, severely overweight is another category, obese is another category, hyper obese, she's like 7 magnitudes above where overweight stops. So her statement is correct, but she is incorrectly describing her condition.
Oh, because I am not, in fact, over 7 feet tall to balance out my weight. So according to my BMI, I'm obese, which is hilarious to me. Not because I think being unhealthy is funny, but because I'm healthy.
Gonna have to call lies on that one.
Extremely so, in fact.
Extremely healthy. I'm not so sure about that. I have not seen Tess do much of anything without getting out of breath.
I'm able to keep up with my children perfectly.
Are you really, Tess? Because when we see your Twitter and your Instagram, it's always your roommates taking care of your kids. It's rarely you, unless you're driving them around, in which case you're driving them to a fast food place and eating fast food in the car and letting them have some of that unhealthy food.
So Tess is saying a lot in that statement. First off, most notable being that...
Well, Tess actually, I believe, was pregnant. I don't know if she has all of her children with her, but she does at this moment. But she does have biological children, I believe. Tess does, not Foodie, of course. So I'm not sure. Maybe we had a miscommunication.
She's not obese. You don't really just get to opt out of being obese. Unless, there's an issue with BMI and you're not meant to be in that category, which would not apply to this level of obesity. Or you go and have your fat scanned and you find out that you're actually carrying 200 pounds of muscle. Being able to do essential life tasks, such as watching after your children or stand on your feet all day to do your job, does not prove that you're extremely healthy. Now, there's enough data to suggest that you can indeed be overweight and be healthy. But to be fair, there is also data suggesting that no, people are healthiest within the normal BMI range, and beyond that, you're less healthy.
And this is just my personal opinion, anecdotal, but I found that the so-called healthy BMI range, I find that you can be a little bit above that and still be perfectly healthy, still look really good. But the higher you get above that, the less likely it is that you're going to be in good health. It's almost a directly proportionate thing. If we drew a graph of people's health and their BMI, below a certain point, it doesn't correlate especially closely. But once you get over a certain BMI, it's going to correlate with decreased quality of living.
You can make a compelling argument with the data that's out there for either one. But that is not what we're talking about here. There are no doctors that I've seen arguing that you can be this obese and be healthy. This is the equivalent of someone who's like a high-functioning alcoholic or a chain smoker saying that because they don't have any issues right now, because they don't have a disease right now, that they're healthy. Well, no.
Oh, okay, Big Cadillac. 'Cause I wasn't 100% sure what you meant, but that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, you have an addiction. And by Cosmo validating this, by acting like, oh, Tess, she lives a healthy lifestyle, she's just big. It plays into the health at every size narrative that you can be this big and it's not suggestive of you living an unhealthy lifestyle or having a problem with food. You're just born that way, you're just built like that. And unfortunately, Cosmo is not the only one validating Tess's delusions to millions of people. There seems
Foodie beauty, perfect example. She's not a foodie. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So maybe Salah considers her a beauty. I'm not going to argue that. It's her right to call herself what she wants. I guess she can call herself a foodie too, but I won't. Well, whatever. We're not going to. This is a discussion for another time. But what was I even saying? I totally lost my train of thought. I got so distracted by how foodie is not really a foodie. All right, whatever. Back to Kiana. And let me put another link to Kiana's channel because I don't know much about the rest of her content, but I thought this video was pretty well made. It was very even-handed, I thought.
Seems to be this budding corporate trend of discussing health as if it just involves declaring, I am healthy, as opposed to being defined by
that's what
actively...
I wanted to say. That about spreading the myth that it's possible to be, to eat all kinds of junk food, or excuse me, the myth that it's possible to be hyper obese without eating poorly, without being inactive. With foodie, ALR, HFC, Pink Fairy, they have similar lifestyles and they end up with similar trying to think of the right word for it, similar physical conditions. So yes, some people are outliers. Some people eat very poorly and end up with good health. Some people eat very well and end up with poor health. But generally, people who are hyper obese generally overeat significantly and do not get enough activity. Too many calories in, not enough calories out. It's scientific. And yes, like I said, there are outliers, but we see all the time, Dr. No, 600-pound life, as much as I don't care for TLC. Whenever we see that all the time on there, that these people claim that they don't understand why they're heavy, but when they're put into a supervised environment where their calories are monitored, they invariably lose the weight. Oh, I did not know Kiana's lost a lot of weight. Excellent for her. I mean, she looks great. Good. That's so great to hear. And for anyone listening, I myself have lost a good deal of weight. That's part of why I'm so interested in these subjects. I've lost over the years, I've lost and gained so much. But in the last couple of years, I've lost about 90 pounds, 100 pounds or so, and I'm at a healthy weight at the moment. So I'm very happy with that. Hopefully I can stay that way.
Living a healthy lifestyle and not engaging in destructive behavior.
Prior to this cover, Tess was actually featured on the front of Self, an actual health magazine, or at least it was a health magazine. I don't know what you would call it today. And Health magazine has featured many fat activists as of late, including Virgie Tovar, which if you've seen my video on her, you'll know her definition of health is a little out there.
Actually, Virgie recently also said, there is no such thing as individual health. So there you have it. In the land of body positivity, health is so subjective that it basically doesn't even exist. And the corporate world is so desperate to cash in on people's insecurities that they're willing to put feelings over facts and people's health at risk in order to pander. In my opinion, though, one of the most empowering discoveries over the last however many years is just how big of an impact
I didn't even know who Luxie was, but I was like, okay, good for them.
our decisions, our actions can have on our what's called our health span, which is essentially the amount of years we live in our lives in good health, free from the chronic diseases that come with aging. And is that not extremely encouraging to the general public? Why would we ever downplay that to any degree at all? This is, as far as I can tell, the definition of glorifying obesity, obscuring the truest reality of the disease of obesity and pretending that it is somehow not a big deal. And although this hypothesis is still unsupported by current research, moments like these are huge for movements like Health at Every Size.
And why many of Tess's obese followers believe that Tess is healthy, and therefore they're healthy too. It's also why people suddenly feel confident saying things like this.
Can this person go back to school, please? Or go do some research and not be a fucking idiot? Fat does not equal unhealthy. Get your info.
Pardon the language, folks. I don't know how YouTube is. I may have to flag this video because I don't care for all the profanity.
Info straight before you hop on the internet and be
flag it for only for not for children. I mean,
an idiot.
Now, fat might not equal unhealthy, but being very obese certainly does. So before we discuss the science that fat activists use to support their claims, let's talk a little bit about the cold, hard, and unglamorous reality of obesity.
The inconvenient truth in this instance is that at 5'3" and over 300 pounds, Tess Holliday has a BMI of at least 49 and would be—
And let's keep in mind, at over 300 pounds is a conservative estimate for Tess, because that was what she reported her weight to be years ago. She's gotten significantly heavier, and in my opinion, she may have been heavier even when she reported her weight at 300. She looked to be significantly heavier. I don't think I'll get in trouble or anything like that, but I have my videos marked as acceptable for all ages. I don't have it as content for children, but I don't have it marked as 18 plus. So I don't know exactly how that's going to work, but whatever. Oh, okay, Pink Cadillac. Yeah, I get what you're saying on that. Tess looks a lot bigger than 300. I know she's very short. That's another thing I want to point out about Tess being a model. She kind of had a moment where she lucked into the model thing, but she's not really tall. She's actually extremely short, and models typically are of average height. As a guy who's definitely not tall enough to model, I'm not saying that with any glee. But yeah, Tess is far too short to be a real model. She's only like 5 feet, Kels. Yeah, she's only about 5 feet tall, 5'1" maybe. She's very short. So for her to be a model, that's another reason why she was always a very unorthodox model. But she kind of just lucked into that position. And then when she was then had that fiasco where she misreported her size, there's no shortage of plus size women they could find who are taller and easier to work with. So she's 5'5". I don't think she's really 5'5". Is she standing in front of a tape measure? Because I want to see some proof on that 5'5". I want to see some proof on that 5'5", Camps. I don't buy that. If she's 5'3", I'd be surprised. I doubt she's even 5'3", personally, because I've never seen every picture I see her in. She's always the shortest one in there, and I don't mean next to these tall, glamorous models either, but maybe 5'4". I don't know. I just every time I see her in a picture, she always looks really, really short. Maybe everybody else is wearing heels. I don't know, but I just feels like she's always looks really short when I see her in pictures. But maybe she just stands next to a lot of tall people. I don't know. Let's get back to this.
Be considered to have the most extreme form of obesity. Class 3, formerly known as morbidly obese. At this size, Tess is at risk for over 200 different diseases. And much to the chagrin of the politically correct, obesity itself is classified as a disease, because it is not only an underpinning of major chronic diseases, but a serious debilitating condition in its own right.
So how is obesity a debilitating condition in its own right? Two of the biggest reasons for this are 1, dangerous visceral fat, and 2, mechanical issues stemming from extra weight. Also, you guys totally lucked out because I was planning on showing you these like really gross anatomy videos of visceral fat, but I found out it's against the community guidelines. So if you want to see them, you can look them up. They're on YouTube. They're super gross though, so be warned.
Visceral fat is commonly referred to as belly fat, but specifically refers to the fat wrapped around your internal organ.
Interestingly, men are more at risk for visceral fat than women, from my understanding. That women tend to store the fat subcutaneously below the skin, whereas men typically store it store more of it under the muscles around the abdomen, around the guts. That's why you see a lot of guys who get that big beer belly look, because they have so much visceral fat. It kind of makes their belly swell up, but it's not especially flabby looking. It's like that big hard beer belly look.
We all have and need visceral fat, but too much visceral fat leaks excess hormones and inflammatory molecules into your bloodstream, putting your body into a chronic inflammatory state, which results in DNA damage and majorly ups your risk for a ton of different diseases and cancers. Mechanical issues. The most obvious and observable reason that obesity is horrendous for your body is simple. All that extra body weight is heavy. Our bodies were not designed to carry an excess 100, 200, 300 pounds. And lugging this weight around has serious and unavoidable consequences. Extra weight wears down the cartilage in the knees and joints prematurely. The damage increases exponentially as weight is gained because your joints not only have to deal with the extra pressure, but the increase of force during movement. According to Harvard,
that's something a lot of people when they're younger, your joints are going to hold up when you're younger, no matter how heavy you are. But once you get past a certain age, you're gonna have used up a lot of that at a young age. So it's one of those things where when you're younger, it's very easy to ignore the consequences.
Harvard Medical School, when you walk across level ground, the force on your knees is the equivalent of 1.5 times your body weight. That means Tess, at 300 plus pounds, is putting 450 pounds of pressure on her knees with each step, while someone at 150 pounds is only putting about 225 pounds of pressure per step. This is why it's very dangerous for very obese people to exercise.
At some point in time, if she keeps up this type of training...
That's a good point, by the way. Tess, at her weight, probably shouldn't be exercising traditionally. Probably should be doing water aerobics or something, because she has only gotten significantly heavier since what you're seeing in these videos. And by the way, everybody, spoiler alert, Tess claims to be anorexic. Yes, she claims to suffer from atypical anorexia. I don't know if Kiana goes into full detail, and I don't know if we may not get to that. I don't think she actually covers that herself. But I will just go over that very briefly here, because I don't think she covers that. Yes, Tess Holliday claims to be anorexic. She claims that because she's lost so much weight so quickly, and she's been starving herself, her words, trigger warning everybody, she said that she is anorexic. I want to play the video, but I'll probably get flagged, because Good Morning America, you know how they are. But you can look it up yourself on YouTube. There's a clip of her telling some lady on a news show that she has anorexia. And the woman just sits there totally just straight-faced and just nods like, oh, wow, really? Yeah. Oh, yes, so yes, you so clearly saw. And Tess doesn't say, oh, well, when I was younger, I had anorexia and I don't have it anymore. She says, no, at this moment, I am suffering from anorexia. She claims that she is actively suffering from anorexia while being something like 300 pounds overweight. More importantly, I think that anybody who's ever known an anorexic knows an anorexic hates to be seen eating. They just won't they won't eat in public. They just won't do it. They get so upset. And trigger warnings for anybody, but anybody who's known an anorexic knows that. They refuse to let anybody see them eating, especially anything that could be seen as unhealthy. Tess records herself eating cake and ice cream and things like that regularly. The majority of her content is mukbang type stuff, feeder content. What anorexic would record themselves doing feeder content? That's just insanity. That's not possible. It's just impossible. It boggles the mind that anybody could even allege that. So Tess is so full of crap. I mean, she can't have anorexia because she's clearly eating her own BS. All right. Now that I've said that, yes, everybody, please go look up Tess Holliday's allegation of anorexia. It's insulting. It's absolutely insulting. The way Foodie is upsetting to some people, the way she makes light of eating disorders. Tess is absolutely trolling. If she's not trolling, she's delusional. But either way, I could see where it would upset some people because she absolutely is just full of crap. There's no nice way to say it. It's insulting. It's insulting. Anybody who's ever struggled with any kind of eating disorder or even just anything with food, any kind of food issue at all, it's an insult to you. So just keep that in mind if you when you think about Tess. All right, let's let this video keep going.
Holliday will most likely suffer an injury to her ankle, her lower back, or her knees.
Yep.
As you continue to go up in weight, that pressure just continues to compound. Every minute you spend at that size, you're needlessly harming your body.
Yes.
This alone for me is enough to declare health at every size a myth. I could go on forever about the consequences of obesity, but there are decades of research and proof to support this already. It is very obvious that your weight may indeed disqualify you from the healthy category. Anyway, now that we've gone over that, let's get back to Tess and how she became the gateway drug to health at every size.
The influence
Many
of Tess.
plus-size women have felt held back or defined by society's often unfair depictions of bigger women.
Billy? Billy? Billy!
Daddy!
So while it may seem that Tess Holliday is famous in spite of her weight, in reality, she's become so successful because of her weight. As far as famous plus-size models
Hold on a second, wait a minute.
Seem that Tess Holliday is
Here's how
famous
tall she
in
is.
spite of her weight. In reality, she's become so successful
She's there. There she is. She's just over 5 feet. There's the sign. See it? Unless she's actually 4 feet tall? I don't know. I'm assuming that line there is 5 feet tall. So she is just over 5 feet.
because of her weight. As far as famous plus-size models go, Ashley Graham came before her.
Yeah,
but
Ashley Graham. Now there's a nice looking plus-size model right there.
Still looks exactly like a typical model. With the classic 0.7 waist-to-hip ratio, a big butt and boobs, and no visible lumps with smooth, shiny, tight skin.
Yeah, you really can't confuse Ashley Graham and Tess Holliday. I just don't think you can confuse the two of them.
Basically, her body still looks like a typical model's body. Even with Cosmo's best efforts, however, Tess's body doesn't. Tess is lumpy. Tess has a lot of cellulite. She has back fat, underarm flaps, and ample body rolls. Tess, in some ways, then, is more like the average plus-size woman than any other cover model to come before her.
It's just amazing to have a role model like Tess and actually see someone who actually looks like me, owning their sexiness and owning their curves and being someone that I can actually relate to in the mainstream media.
And this common ground makes her incredibly influential.
Why hate yourself and why deprive yourself of having the most beautiful life possible because you happen to be fat or you happen to be a different color or you happen to be whatever's holding you back. Like, life's too fucking short for that shit.
These women see Tess being...
Tess is just so articulate too. You know, when you listen to her talk, you can just tell that she's a very intelligent person, right?
Celebrated for her beauty and think, I can be beautiful too. The F Your Beauty Standards hashtag she started has grown to over 4.5 million reposts of women declaring that they find themselves...
See, but let me just point something out, though. Let me just point something out. I don't know. There's a guy. It's that guy on the left there. When I was at my heaviest, I was probably not as fat as him, but let's say I was close to that. Even though I was less fat than that, it's irrelevant. Let's say that that is an example of a plus size guy. When I see him, I don't find that in any way aspirational. I see a guy who needs a bigger shirt. I don't see him and say, oh, wow, fat guys are sexy now, so I'm going to go be fat and lift up my shirt and dance around in a Speedo that's 3 sizes too small. No, I see that guy and think, man, he needs a bigger shirt. And if I'm as big as him, I need a bigger shirt too. And why the hell is he dancing in a video? Why don't they get somebody who's, if he dances all the time, how is he so big? How can he dance all the time and still be that heavy? If I worked out all the time, there's no way I could be that heavy. So that's what I see as a man. So I don't know what women see when they see these big women dancing around. But as a guy who's been big, when I see a big guy dancing around, all I think is, how does he stay so big if he dances so much? Because if I was dancing, I'd be burning a lot of calories. I guess that's just how I see things, though. But yeah, I don't see him at all as aspirational. I see him as a clown.
The F Your Beauty Standards hashtag she started has grown to over 4.5 million reposts of women declaring that they find themselves beautiful, regardless of what you or society thinks. And they're looking to Tess for inspiration and as a role model, even going as far as to idolize her in some instances.
When I was in high school and I got an Instagram, one of the very first people I followed was the great Tess Holliday.
People like Tess Holliday give me and so many other women confidence.
I had never seen someone who looked like me at the time, who had the same kind of body as me, rocking it. Honestly, I had not seen that before.
And she showed me how to love my body. She showed me how to love every curve, every lump, every bump, and, just to be happy in the body that I'm in.
Yeah, she is like an icon, a pioneer of plus size.
I'm very proud of her. I don't know her or anything like that, but I feel like I do because I can relate to her.
Yeah, I could totally understand this right here. That's the thing. Just because you're big doesn't mean you have to show. Just because you have more skin doesn't mean you have to show more skin. You could be attractive and look good being big, but that doesn't mean you have to expose yourself like that. And if you dance and move a lot, you're going to lose weight. It's hard to be big if you're really active. You have to eat a lot to stay big if you're really, truly active.
Her so strongly.
I still have the People's Magazine from whenever she was on the cover. That was a historic moment for me. I kept it and I've saved it all these years.
I had never felt so excited and so accepted.
This emotional connection to Tess on such a sensitive and personal topic means that these women are very receptive to things that Tess has to say. Which would be all fine and well if Tess limited the conversation to beauty standards and body positivity, but as we've seen, she just doesn't.
I always mention my success, but then it would always be followed with, well, she's unhealthy or this, so, right. Which I'm not.
She keeps
saying how she's not unhealthy, but she's not able to do. She talks about how she promotes fitness, this fitness wear, this health athletic wear, but she's not even able to model it adequately. She's not even able to do a full workout, so she can't even show people what the clothes would look like being used.
Reaffirming to everyone that she's healthy, and anyone who says otherwise is just fat phobic. So when these women come to Tess seeking inspiration and to feel more body positive, they're also receiving a dose of health at every size at the same time. Because of this, Tess Holliday, as the most famous body positive influencer, as well as other BOPO influencers, have become the gateway drug to health at every size. Where you go looking for one, you often find the other. Now, to really understand what I mean by this, it's important to take a look back at the origins of health at every size and how we got here.
Yes, indeed.
Hi, I'm Dr. Linda Bacon.
All right, before we go on to this next subject, let me respond to a few comments. Lizzo must be drinking a lot of alcohol or something, because for all that dancing and moving around, to stay that heavy means that she must be consuming a tremendous amount of calories. So I'm thinking that I believe she drinks a lot. That would probably be a lot of it. But if she just would cut down on what she eats, the weight would fall off with all that dancing. That's tough. That's tough. It's a balance. It's such a fine balance. Because look at Foodie. She keeps talking about how she doesn't want to restrict. She doesn't want to restrict. But then she just eats whatever, which is really unhealthy. So it's a tough balance, getting it just right. And I do think she has youth on her side. I think that's why she's able to move around so much at her weight, because otherwise, it's going to be, well, she'll learn one way or the other. I'm not familiar with Whitney. Okay, let's get back to the show.
And I'm devoted to creating a global transformation that focuses on body respect, not the war on weight.
Haze has been around for many years, but became more popular following the 2008 publishing of a book of the same name by Dr. Lindo Bacon, formerly Linda, who you were just introduced to. When I first started researching Health at Every Size for this video, I was actually surprised at how reasonable some of the ideas were.
Health at Every Size is a movement that is basically just encouraging people to adopt good health behaviors and to forget about weight as a goal or weight change as a goal, and instead just embrace the bodies that we're living in and make good health choices to support them.
Doesn't sound...
Yeah, I was just about to say, that sounds great on the surface, right? I mean, that statement, nothing wrong with that. I agree with that. Kiana here sounds like she agrees with it too. Like, let me post another link to her channel.
So bad, right? I wholeheartedly agree that forgetting about the number on the scale and just focusing on the behaviors that lead to good health is not only the best way to get healthy, but ironically, probably the best way to lose weight as well. And honestly, there are many other reasonable and important ideas in this book that I think could be helpful for people, such as the need to practice self-acceptance at any size, the need to end weight stigma in healthcare, and the fact that crash diets, even if they do lead to weight loss, are not healthy or sustainable. If this was all the movement was pushing, it would be a good thing. But, and it's a big but, unfortunately, these ideas are overshadowed with the need to push that fat or obesity is not unhealthy in any way, shape, or form. And what's particularly harmful about this is that it's done in a way that suggests that this is the truth according to science.
Okay.
Thank you, Kiana. That's why I really like this documentary. I think she does a great job of presenting in a very fair way. There's a lot of nice things about the idea of respect for people at all weights. I always say that. All people, regardless of how big you are, you still deserve respect as a person. But we have to be realistic about things like health. And this is an interesting statement here. I want to read this comment here by Ready, Set, Fupa, Febreze. I'm 42 and it just hits different. My body hurts with having RA, so I need to learn how to eat breakfast. I always skip breakfast. That's the most important meal of the day. Breakfast is important, but I've learned that everybody is different in the sense that sometimes having a breakfast may not be the best for everyone. I've personally cut out breakfasts for the most part. I only have I have a protein drink for breakfast now. That's what I make my breakfast. I just have a protein drink. Because when I used to eat a breakfast with carbs, it just made me hungrier and I would eat more carbs throughout the day. So for me to keep my calories reasonable throughout the day, I generally just have protein for breakfast, a protein shake using dairy protein powder. And then later in the day, I'll have carbs. I'll even have breakfast type foods if I want. But that's something that I've learned. I don't know about with the RA, that might cause you to have different nutritional needs, but otherwise, eating once a day doesn't have to be a bad thing. It just depends on your personal needs. So like I said, I'm not a doctor. I don't know what you personally need. But if you don't have a specific nutrition schedule that you must adhere to, eating once a day is not inherently a bad thing. Yeah, so hope you're doing well here. Oh, is that a medication for RA? Well, hope you're doing well, folks. Let me put the show back on here while I read your comments.
So, we don't have evidence that fat is the killer it's made out to be, you may be thinking, but it clearly causes disease. Does it? Suspend your preconceptions and a very different picture emerges.
Oh, geez.
One where it's the machinery of weight stigma that needs dismantling.
Some of these scientific truths, according to Haze, are: your body size is almost 100% genetically determined and not at all under your control. Weight loss is scientifically impossible, and quote, those who do succeed are statistical anomalies whose habits are akin to eating disordered behavior and extreme amounts of exercise. There are no health benefits.
Dr. Lindo is pushing harmful lies with those statements. Let's go back to those. Dr. Lindo Bacon here. What Dr. Lindo said in the beginning about all people deserving respect, something like that was very reasonable. But this part here about weight loss being scientifically impossible, that's untrue. Statistical anomalies, it depends how you want to define an anomaly, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible. And saying that it's disordered to eat in a way that would cause one to lose excess body fat is disordered thinking, Lindo.
Eating disordered behavior, and extreme amounts of exercise.
Lindo is
There
got
are
disorder
no
if
health
they think
benefits
that.
to losing weight anyway. In fact, it might be harmful to your health. Excess body fat does not affect your health. And of course, diets don't work, with no nuance applied to suggest that a lifestyle change does work. Health at Every Size literally claims that obesity isn't unhealthy, and even if it was, weight loss is impossible. So we should all just stop trying.
The best way to win the war against fat is to give up the fight.
Before we continue, for anyone watching this thinking, no, you have Healthy Size all wrong. It is not about pushing that fat or obesity is not unhealthy. According to many websites and Health at Every Size practitioners, the issues that I've mentioned with HAES are misconceptions. They're ideas that have been distorted by the internet, and they're not reflective of the true benign nature of Health at Every Size. Even YouTube's own Abby Sharp is Health at Every Size, and she has a disclaimer on her website.
I'm happy for you, because that must be horrible to lose your hair to a medication, especially. I mean, sometimes when we get older, it just happens eventually. But when you're still young like you are, I mean, I'm so glad that you got your hair back. And it looks very nice in your picture there, if that's a current picture. Okay. See, dairy is one of those things that some people, it really affects them negatively, but for some people, it's really good for them. For me, I digest dairy great. I do not digest eggs well. So for a lot of people, it's the opposite, where they do great with eggs, but dairy is an issue for them. For me, it's the opposite. Dairy, no problem. But if dairy is an issue for you, by all means, don't have something if it doesn't agree with you. Yes, and movement, activity, that's always great. Hey, well, if you enjoy yogurt and kefir, that's great, because those are both very rich in proteins. So I don't personally like those that much, but again, I have no problem with regular milk. But those are very healthy. If you like that stuff, that's great.
Website, which says, it's health at every size, not healthy at every size, a subtle but important distinction. But the more I looked, the more I saw that was not true at all. In fact, on the official Health at Every Size website, there is blatant obesity denial. In the FAQ section, there's a question that says, shouldn't we be looking for a cure for obesity rather than promoting size acceptance? And their official answer not only included obese and question marks as if it were fictional, but also stated, in order to cure a condition, the condition must be defined as a disease. If we say obesity is a disease, then we must say on some level that body fat is pathological. But there is no evidence that adipose tissue is harmful to our health. Yeah, so it was then that I realized
that is a very manipulated statement here. They even have a footnote, a 7 there. So I'm sure if you go down to the footnote, there's some study that they've taken out of context that they're using. When they say there's no evidence that adipose tissue is harmful to our health, take it out of context, that's correct. Adipose tissue is fat. Fat is known as adipose tissue. I'm not an anatomy expert. I know there's more advanced words to describe different types of fat, but one type of, but adipose tissue is fat. I know that. It's at least one type of it. But in large excess amounts, that it's inflamed, that's hyperplasic adipose tissue, that is absolutely harmful to one's health. So they're intentionally misrepresenting this, in my opinion.
Harmful to our health. Yeah, so it was then that I realized that not only were Health at Every Size and fat acceptance similar, but they were the exact same thing. If you don't believe me, then keep watching.
HealthAtEverySizeblog.org chronicles the roots of HAES, tracing the foundational ideas all the way back to the 60s and 70s, where a political group called the Fat Underground band together to try to infiltrate the medical establishment in an attempt to change anti-fat attitudes that, quote, perpetuated the unhealthy habits encouraged by diet culture. Sound familiar?
99% of the people who lose weight gain it back. 90% of those people gain back more than they lost.
People, women like. Well, that's like saying that the most people who quit drugs go back on drugs. Does that mean that everybody should just take lots of drugs all the time? I don't think so. Just because people who try to quit drinking go back to drinking, does that mean that nobody should ever try to quit? This is such nonsensical and defeatist talk.
Ourselves who are forced to diet our entire lives because we're naturally fat women, and who are talking about 100-pound weight loss that is killing us.
It's because it's your body's nature to be fat, and that's the reason. You know you'll have no life at all until you accept yourself as the woman you are.
Their motto was literally, doctors are the enemy, weight loss is genocide. And the change society, not ourselves ideology was apparently the foundation of their movement. And no, that's not satire, that's really...
How old is this? This video clip? This looks like something from the 90s, or maybe even the 80s? Probably the 90s, in my guess. How old is this YouTube video? This compilation video made by Kiana here is, I think it was released last year. I could be wrong though.
Really what it says.
If you were to go and look up the history of the fat acceptance movement as a political group, you would actually find the exact same story as what's posted here for Health at Every Size. The history of Health at Every Size and the history of fat acceptance are the exact same. They're the same group. Most of, if not all, the foundational ideas of Health at Every Size as they exist today can be found back then in various fat acceptance texts. Let's see if we recognize any of these ideas.
Biology, not eating habits, is the main cause of fat. Health problems of fat people are not inherently due to fat, but the result of stress, self-hatred, and chronic diet.
See, now this second one here is especially bothersome to me because this is something that is very appealing to someone who doesn't want to, who's in denial of their own health. Someone like Foodie would eat this up, pun intended. This here is a dangerous belief. It's something that will lead to poor health if somebody internalizes this belief here.
Dieting. Weight loss efforts damage health, almost never succeed except temporarily, and should not be used.
And actually, here's a quote from a book titled Don't Diet that they listed on their website as one of their texts, which pretty much echoes the sentiment we saw earlier.
You're probably right.
There is no good reason to consider the general increase in fatness an epidemic. People are becoming taller too, but nobody talks about a height epidemic. Nor is there any good reason to consider fatness a disease. The people of the Western world are both fatter and healthier than ever before.
But there's no correlation between good health and being fat. And there is actually a correlation between being fat and being unhealthy. To ignore that is unscientific. This is whoever wrote this is not is being intellectually dishonest. I'll say it like that.
And the experts and co-founders of Healthy at Every Size, as listed by ASDA's website, are all members of NAFA, the National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance.
Clearly, even after all these years, Health at Every Size has not come very far from its roots in fat activism. Now, as a quick disclaimer, Health at Every Size has become a huge movement today, and I am not by any means saying that all Health at Every Size practitioners are fat activists. I'm sure there are lots of HAES professionals that practice it a lot more responsibly than what's being depicted here, and are not even aware that this is a Trojan horse for fat activism.
Yeah, I do want to say that there is a positive side to health at any size, and that is no matter how much you weigh, you can be healthier. There's no reason to give up on your health. But that's kind of but there's so much negative to it as well, and we need to discard the negative and just take out the positive, what positive there is.
Now, obviously, it's my opinion that it's a Trojan horse, but if the shoe fits.
Showing off the
So sure, you might say that everything I've listed is a misconception, but I would argue that it's a misconception that these are misconceptions, and it's a ploy to seem more reasonable than it is in order to advance the goals of the movement. And at its core, Health at Every Size's main goal is to push fat activism and not health. And of course, conveniently, the more radical ideas of health at every size are what spread like wildfire across social media by body positive influencers like Tess, while the more reasonable ideas take a back seat or are stripped of nuance to the point of uselessness. You do not need to downplay the very real risks of obesity to champion the idea that everyone can take steps to live a healthier lifestyle regardless of their body size. And the fact that they do shows their true intent, in my opinion.
Well said, Kiana. This is such a great video. She's not
The
even leaving much
impact
for me
of
to
health
say.
at every size messages being
What is
disseminated
wrong
by
with their
Tess
language?
Holliday
Why do so many of these fat activists have to have such foul mouths? It's one thing if they want to put trash into their mouths, but why must trash come out of their mouths as well? Why can't they use some positive? Why can't they speak respectfully? Why can't they say? Why do they have to use all this profanity? I don't get it.
Similar is that some of her followers have been pulled into the rhetoric of health at every size and now truly believe that it's possible to be morbidly obese and healthy.
After I discovered Tess, it led me to discover a lot of other fat positive, fat acceptance influencers. So one of
This girl doesn't even look that heavy. What is she? Why is she? I don't even understand what she's looking for.
Big points that I remember was always subscribing to the idea that I was fat, but I was healthy. My blood work was fine. Everything was fine, so I'm fine. I was really excited to finally feel accepted and to finally feel like my body was good and it was beautiful. My body was good and it was just unhealthy. And I didn't want to see that, and entering into the fat acceptance movement really made me blind to that.
And the fact that Tess and other obese people receive so much hate online, telling them otherwise, pushes these women further into their online groups and deeper into the lies of health at every size.
Fat people have to live in a world that openly hates them. They talk about solving the obesity epidemic. That means getting rid of people like me.
After all, if you're obese, you're living in an obese body, you truly believe that obese people are just as healthy, that they were born this way, and that they can't change it at all, and the world refuses to acknowledge this and even shames you and pressures you to do something that's impossible, well, then it can kind of feel like the whole world is against you. And speaking from experience, fat people do get bullied and they are ostracized in many ways for their weight. So this, coupled with the health at every size and fat activists whispering in your ear that everybody hates fat people, can really make you feel like you need to attach yourself to your group. We are wired to define ourselves by those who consider in and out of our groups, something called in-group favoritism. For certain sects of the body positivity and fat acceptance movements, anyone who is happily obese is welcome in the group. However, anyone losing weight or propagating #diet culture is a threat to the group and therefore unwelcome.
Participating in a diet that says you must lose weight to be more worthy is not body positive. Being forced to lose weight for medical reasons is not body positive. I am asking you to think critically about how your participation in diet culture may be harmful to other people.
Meaning that if members want to remain in their group where they've made...
That is so disturbing, the way that they encourage each other to not try to get healthier. That does sound a little bit cult-like. It's like, don't leave us. We need you to stay this way so that you can reinforce our worldview. Because if you leave, then that weakens our perspective. Then we lose the authority of having another mouthpiece. So you can't change your ways. You must stay like us.
Friends where they feel more accepted and beautiful than they do in regular society, then they are under pressure to remain fat. Tess herself is very careful to make sure that although everyone knows she's living that healthy lifestyle, she is absolutely under no circumstances trying to lose weight. In her interview for the Self magazine cover that we talked about, she talks about starting to eat healthier, but feeling guilty about it. Tess worries that her fans and followers might take the shift the wrong way, and is quick to clarify, I'm still gonna eat Cheetos and all of that.
If you read this, it's really interesting how Tess is so desperate to not offend what she sees as her consumers, her audience of people who have bought into her fat activism, that she can't even talk about trying to get healthier. When she does, she has to qualify it. Well, I'm still gonna eat Cheetos and all of that. because her brand is built on poor health. And if she doesn't make people feel good about being in poor health, she's not strengthening her brand. So when we talk about people spreading dangerous messages, Tess is truly spreading one. I don't think she should be deplatformed. I think people have the right to free speech, but I'm going to call out what I see as preaching unhealthy and dangerous attitudes.
She understands that a brand built on self-acceptance might question changes in her lifestyle if they come across as abandoning this core philosophy. Wow, sounds like a really loving and accepting group of people, ready to lynch you at a moment's notice if you so much as stop eating Cheetos.
Yes, Kiana, exactly, like I just pointed out too. These people are so welcoming and accepting unless you disagree a little bit. And they're so welcoming and accepting unless you say, well, I'm not 100% on board. I cast thee out. That's the kind of tolerance that you get in this community, it looks like. And yeah, I think these are just great comments. So many. Thank you, everyone, for sharing these. Whoops.
Can be found back then in various fat acceptance texts. Let's see if we recognize any of these ideas.
Biology, not
happened before.
Where was I? I lost where I was.
Body shaming situation. She'd be attacked, and she would definitely shift the wrong style if they come across as abandoning this core, ready to lynch you at a moment's notice if you so much as stop eating Cheetos.
Yeah, they will hang
Clearly,
you up.
Tess is aware that she now needs to stay obese in order to retain the love and respect of her fans. And if she ever happened to lose weight or needed to lose weight for medical reasons, she'd be in a tough situation. She'd be attacked, and she would definitely be dethroned as their queen of body positivity. Because no one in this group will admit that obesity is unhealthy, all intentional weight loss is considered fat phobia, even in the face of serious and life-threatening medical concerns, resulting in a toxic culture where people have to choose between their friends and their online community and their health.
Think about that for a second. That's a great point Kiana just made. Imagine if you were someone who maybe was not the most comfortable socially in real life. So online, you've made some friends. You're very overweight, perhaps, morbidly obese, hyper obese. So the friends you've made are also so big. And the friendships you've made revolve around your physical condition, your hyper obesity. And you accept one another at the size that you are. You can relate to one another. That's all good. But then what happens if you decide, or let's say that you have circumstances that cause you to lose that weight? You're going to lose those friends. Yes, it's difficult enough losing weight. If you have an emotional issue, you're going to lose that crutch, but you're also going to lose those friendships. That's disincentivizing health. That's a bad thing. Those people are enabling each other to be unhealthy. So we have to call it out for what it is. Yes, like Adele. Unfortunately, Adele getting healthy was attacked for getting healthy. Respect, camps. I think that's fantastic. I'm so glad to hear that. We need more success stories to counter this BS narrative. I like to be a success story. I want to continue to be one. Skinny is working on it. You know, it sounds like you're doing it. A lot of people in this chat are doing it. And even if you're just, even if you're just maintaining, if you're doing a step in the right direction, even if you're just holding yourself accountable, you're doing the right thing, and respect to you.
Choices to become healthier were my choices, and I made those choices very aware of what would come as a result of them.
I'd had this health scare. My doctor came and saw me, and he revealed that I had type 2 diabetes, which I had never received that diagnosis before. And he was basically like, look, you have to lose some amount of weight in order to deal with this, or you're going to have to be just permanently on medication for diabetes, probably for the rest of your life.
I held myself back from losing weight because I thought I was making like this political statement, right? And I was being such a rebel, and that I was part of this fat acceptance movement and no body shaming and loving and accepting myself. But
I wanted to...
Did you hear that last part? Let's hear that one more time, because I think that statement is just... This woman here is an example of what I was just talking about. Somebody who, if they got healthy, would lose their friends, would lose their social circle.
Let's see what happened to her. For the rest of your life.
I held myself back from losing weight because I thought I was making like this political statement.
She thought she was making a political statement. It's been politicized. It's been politicized so that to the point where she doesn't feel comfortable talking about getting healthy because it's going to go against her friend's politics. How crazy is that?
Right, and I was being such a rebel, and that I was part of this fat acceptance movement and no body shaming and loving and accepting myself. But
I wanted to belong to some sort of community, and
what I found was...
were these people Beezers? Were these people in Chantal's community? Because that could be the case.
Was that I was being pushed out of these spaces where body positivity activism was happening. People that I really admired, other writers, body positive writers, fat positive writers, I was being asked to leave these spaces because I first of all felt that there were some scenarios where it was acceptable to want to lose weight.
And what has happened is any plus size person who's ever lost weight in this space has been viciously attacked by this community.
I thought that they were all about accepting yourself, loving yourself, loving your body, no body shaming, all of these very good things.
So body positivity and the fat acceptance movement was supposed to be all inclusive, they're supposed to be like these loving people, but I'm being kicked out of it.
The more I was in it, the more I saw how judgmental they were. If you did decide to start losing weight and wanted to become healthy, they just cast you out, and they didn't want to have anything else to do with you. And to be honest, I never really felt like I truly was accepted in that community.
I always felt like I was faking, like I was being someone.
And welcome to any lurkers. Glad to have you in. Welcome. Thank you again to all the chatters. Love having you in here. And anybody watching the replay, thank you for coming in and enjoying it, watching this long. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about fat acceptance versus health at any size. Do you have an opinion? Are you somebody who's struggled with weight? Have you lost a lot of weight? I'd be interested to hear what you have to say. Were you ever a member of the community? Love to hear from you.
I didn't in order to get a group of people who didn't want to see me succeed to like me.
I have to agree.
So why is it that health at every size and body positivity activists feel confident in smugly claiming that they know better?
I've got science on my side, and I'm happy to stand with it.
Unfortunately, a lot of it has to do with the author of the book, Lindo Bacon. If you still had any hope that Hayes is more rational than it seems at the outset, that hope will probably die during this section of the video. Lindo Bacon has a...
Oh, and if you are a member of the Hayes community, I don't want to fight with you. I'd rather hear what you have to say. Even if we disagree, let's do it respectfully. I want to know what you have to say, why you disagree with me, and maybe we could even have a dialogue at some point. May change each other's opinion, we may not, but I'd be very interested to hear what you have to say. So please leave a comment if you are from that community and you're watching this video, whether you agree or disagree.
PhD is apparently a scientist, has worked in research, but their ideas aren't exactly unbiased or rigorously tested. The crux of Lindo's argument, in their own words:
repeat after me. My weight is not the problem. Society's problem about weight is the problem. Lindo lists 8 myths surrounding obesity in the book, beginning with what is called the death by fat myth.
We hear in the news all the time about an obesity epidemic and how people are dying of obesity. And what we see is that it's just not true. It's just not true. It's just not true.
This is a person who appears, that's the blank stare. Let me go back. This person has the blank stare of a fanatic. See how their eyes just look straight through you? That's the blank stare of a religious fanatic.
And what we see is that it's just not true.
It's just staring straight through you. They could be telling you that your pet just died. They could be telling you just lost $20 million. They could be telling you your child is born. They could be telling you that they're about to execute you. That is the blank stare of a religious fanatic who hears nothing and can only articulate their beliefs.
True. It's just not true. It's just not true.
Right? Like an AI robot.
What is officially the biggest health crisis in American history.
More than 200,000 doctors have backed a report tonight calling for urgent action to combat obesity.
Nutritionists say obesity is the biggest threat to public health. In the last 30 years, obesity rates for kids have tripled.
It can lead to a number of health conditions such as high blood pressure, liver disease, and even cancer.
1 in 3 American pets are now obese. Think about that.
Yes, unfortunately, you have heard right. Lindo Bacon outright denies that people are dying of obesity, despite the amount.
Right, Jarella? You think YouTube's going to take down my video? I mean, because that is absolutely if YouTube doesn't put a disclaimer on the bottom of this video saying that there's anti-science misinformation in here, then they are really making fools of us all. I'll just say it like that.
Of evidence, scientific and anecdotal, suggesting otherwise.
What most studies show is that people considered overweight and mildly or moderately obese live at least as long as, or longer, than people deemed normal weight. The data are a little more complicated at the extremes of underweight or obesity, so I won't get into that here.
So what Lindo is referring to...
Lindo reminds me of like the cross between a cult leader and a used car salesman.
Here is what's called the obesity paradox. The discovery that in some studies, overweight and mildly obese people were found to have lived as long as normal weight individuals. And in some instances, overweight people were actually found to have lived longer. The most famous example of this is a meta-analysis from 2013, which tracked 2.8 million people, done by Catherine Flegel. Lindo decides that this one data point is satisfactory enough evidence to say this: the science is clear, body fat is not the killer it's made out to be. But is that a true statement? Is the science clear?
Does fat kill? Let's look at the facts.
First off, plenty of other studies have found the exact opposite, that people in the normal weight category fare best, and for every deviation beyond that, you're shaving years off your life. Second, the prevailing opinion is that the obesity paradox can be explained away by various biases in the research. And the reason it's a paradox is because researchers are confused at why it would even be there, and they're scrambling to try and explain it because obesity has a long history of being correlated with so many different types of disease. This has actually happened before with something called the smoker's paradox.
I'll tell you, Jarrell, I'd like to know which university gave Lindo that degree, just so that I could make sure not to respect anybody else who's graduated from there, because that is incredibly disappointing that that person could be called a PhD and not even be able to understand the most basic data. That's it's mind-boggling. I mean, I joke about calling myself a doctor. That person, I hope, is joking about calling themselves a doctor. I hope Lindo is joking about calling themselves a doctor, because their doctor title is arguably less valid than mine, and mine is self-accredited. All right, let's keep going here.
Where it was found that in some studies, for some strange reason, smoking seemed to impart some sort of survival advantage. It was shown to lower risk of death after certain types of heart attacks, as well as decrease your risk of Parkinson's and knee replacement surgery. In both instances, doctors and researchers were really trying to explain the results as quickly as they could, because they knew that if this kind of information made its way into the media and got distorted to suggest that, okay, this means that smoking is healthy or obesity is healthy, that it would be detrimental to public health. Dr. Sadia Khan, a cardiologist at Northwestern.
Yeah, that's basically what Lindo's doing. Lindo's finding, it's like somebody finding a study that says, well, it's inconclusive if cigarettes are unhealthy, and saying, oh, well, that's proof. Smoking is not bad, because we found one study that doesn't show that it killed anybody. So therefore, it's perfectly fine, because of this one study so we're going to go against everything else because we have this one point of data. Lindo's a fool. And I would agree. I don't think anybody enjoys being extremely overweight. If you're a little bit overweight, you got a little bit of curves or something, that's fine. Ashley Graham earlier, she looks great. But once you get to hyper obese, it's impacting your mobility. There's nothing fun about that. It's a burden. Absolutely ready, set. At 260 plus pounds, it's no fun. When I was very heavy, I was not enjoying that body weight. I'm much happier to be at a healthier weight.
University noticed this effect in his practice.
In fact, I so much want to be at a healthier weight that I will sacrifice eating foods I want to eat. I go without foods I want to eat sometimes because I want to be at a healthy weight. That's just, that might sound crazy to Lindo, but believe it or not, that's something people do.
Obesity paradox caused a lot of confusion and potential damage because we know there are cardiovascular and non-cardiovascular risks associated with obesity. I get a lot of patients who ask, why do I need to lose weight if research says I'm going to live longer? I tell them that losing weight doesn't just reduce the risk of developing heart disease, but also other diseases like cancer. Our data shows you'll live longer and healthier at a normal weight. Given this confusion, it's safe to say—
And we also have anecdotal evidence. We could talk about research studies all we want, but how many people do we know who are hyper obese, who live into old age? Not that many. And the ones who do have very serious issues, health issues. So it's yes, that's maybe not the most scientific data, but if that's what everybody's seeing, and then the scientific data seems to back that up as well, maybe we should listen.
That it's not appropriate and even dangerous to suggest that obesity doesn't kill people. The fact that the obesity paradox exists isn't sufficient to say that obesity isn't healthy, just like the smoker's paradox isn't sufficient to say that smoking is healthy. In reality, life expectancy is one data point among a sea of data points. And we can't use it to say, hey, that means being obese is healthy then. And truthfully, you can't use it to say the opposite, that it means that obesity is unhealthy. It is one piece of a bigger picture.
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing. Kiana is so. This is why I really liked this documentary. I didn't watch the whole thing, but she's such a smart lady because this whole point she's making here, she's making a good point about science in general, and I think too many people gloss over that. They get so caught up in some individual fact, or they get caught up in some individual point that they want to make, that they neglect that there's not a lot backing it up sometimes. Sometimes we need to acknowledge the fallibility of our own knowledge, our own wisdom. True knowledge is in knowing what we don't know. I always say to people, I know stuff, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't double check elsewhere. You should always double check me, double check anyone. And anybody who tells you that they are the authoritative source and you shouldn't double check them, that's probably somebody you shouldn't trust.
Picture that still suggests that being obese is terrible for you. Now, despite the fact that, as I've said, there's a lot to this. There's a lot to the discussion of the obesity paradox. In Lindo's book, this section is only about 2 paragraphs long when we remove the little nod to NAFA and fat acceptance, meaning that Lindo wanted to leave it as if it was self-evident that this meant that obesity didn't reduce life expectancy. No mention of the biases, nothing like that.
Okay, so we don't have evidence that fat is the killer it's made out to be, you may be thinking, but it clearly causes disease. Does it? Does it?
Okay, so before we unpack this point, we need—
What I'm going to say is I think Dr. Lindo is unfamiliar with epistemology. Everybody go look that up.
need to stop and talk about the wording.
So we don't have evidence that fat is the killer it's made out to be, you may be thinking.
We do have evidence that fat kills people. We have years of evidence. We have mountains of evidence. You absolutely cannot say that we don't have evidence. You can maybe say it's not conclusive, but you can under no circumstances say we don't have evidence. Not when the prevailing medical opinion is that obesity kills people.
Obesity on its own contributes to hundreds of thousands of premature deaths in the United States every year, and if we factor in its contributions to all of the major chronic diseases, the number is staggering.
It's one thing to support a controversial hypothesis, to believe it to be true, and to present it properly. That is totally fine. It's quite another thing to present your opinion as known fact, as if any sane person looking at the research would come to the same conclusion that you are. If you're going to put forth a controversial opinion, you need to prove it. You can't just act like it's self-evident because you're a researcher. This is a pattern for Lindo. I originally wanted this section to be breaking down how the obesity paradox is wrong and blah, 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 but there's literally not enough time given how glib and problematic everything that comes out of Lindo Bacon's mouth is. And I think it's important that we do spend some time on it.
That was really fun. So I wanted, she heard what she said? She said she wanted to do a whole section on Dr. Bacon, but it would take the whole time because basically everything Dr. Bacon says is terrible. I thought it was pretty funny the way she said that.
this because it's being done intentionally to manipulate and deceive the audience. And in my opinion, it's outright negligent to present yourself as some scientific authority and then present your...
Well, that's a great point, Ready, Set. Not everybody who is heavy is automatically unhealthy. But I think being heavy is not necessarily the same thing as carrying a high percentage of body fat. Somebody could be heavy set and be more muscular. We see that. Whereas somebody could be heavy set and just be very chubby, like Foodie, for example. There's different body fat percentage. It sounds like more of a factor there. And larger again is relative. Large compared to somebody who's what we would call moderately sized, or large compared to somebody who's already obese. So we should consider that as well.
Opinions as known facts. And now Lindo is taking it one step further and suggesting not only does obesity not result in premature death, but that it also doesn't cause disease. If you convince a group of people that obesity is not harmful and you're wrong, you're literally hurting people. Anyway, back to Lindo's main point.
There you go.
But it clearly causes disease.
That's a booty.
Does it?
In the book, Lindo expounds on this further by saying, the idea that weight plays a large causal role in disease is also unproven. Little evidence supports that weight is the primary cause of many diseases for which it is routinely blamed, except osteoarthritis, sleep apnea, and a few cancers. Yeah, if you don't mind a few cancers, losing your mobility, and never being able to get a restful night's sleep again without a CPAP machine, then...
What about diabetes and heart disease? To say something like, oh, well, diabetes isn't caused by being overweight, it's caused by issues with your pancreas. That's being facetious, in my opinion. But I'm not really a doctor, so who can say?
And obesity is no big deal.
Where you have higher levels of obesity, you have higher levels of diabetes. You have higher levels of hypertension. You have higher levels of coronary artery disease. You have higher levels of cancer. You have higher levels of dementia. You have higher levels of degenerative arthritis, and on it goes.
Does it?
Now, before we get into this next section, we have to break down the deceptive wording again. I already showed you the 200 diseases that obesity ups your...
Well, when you say chest, I don't think you mean breasts, because that's perfectly healthy to have. But if you mean just like fat on the pectoralis area, yeah, absolutely.
Risk of getting. It's impossible to argue that obesity doesn't result in disease. But Lindo intentionally said primary cause here, because cause is technically impossible to prove with epidemiological studies, which is the type of study used to track diseases and all that kind of thing in a population. So yeah, Lindo is right, it's not proven to be the primary cause, but that's more of a fact of epidemiology than it is suggestive of anything about obesity. And as a scientist, Lindo is well aware of this. So Lindo is intentionally speaking in a way so as to confuse the average person reading this into thinking, oh, well, that means that obesity doesn't result in disease.
I really like Kiana a lot. The more I watch this video, the more I'm really feeling what she's saying. I think she presents it so well. I'm so glad we watched this vid. I don't want to endorse other things she's put out because I haven't had a chance to see them, but I'm definitely going to go check out some of her other vids because I really like this one. She seems like a very intelligent person.
And if you think about it, if Lindo stated what they meant in more plain terms, it would be a really pointless thing to argue. Yeah, of course, we can't prove that with epidemiological studies. What's your point? The point is, this whole section is meant to deceive people into thinking that obesity is not bad for you.
Obesity is a leading predictor of health outcomes in the modern age.
Okay.
Period. Full stop.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's just a fact. It's a fact of epidemiology.
Anyway, back to the idea that's being presented here. This idea is an offshoot of what's called the metabolically healthy obese, which is the idea that people who are obese but their blood markers show no signs of insulin resistance or prediabetes or hypertension are healthy individuals despite being technically obese. This is true. There are plenty of obese people whose metabolic health suggests that they are healthy right now, at this moment in time. If the definition of health we're using here is that health is the absence of disease anyway. But unfortunately, when we look at this group and how they fare long term, it's
Okay.
often found that the metabolically healthy obese at some point become metabolically unhealthy. And among those who do manage to remain metabolically healthy, one study found that compared with normal weight people with no metabolic abnormalities, people who were metabolically healthy obese had a 50% increased risk of coronary heart disease, a 7% increased risk of stroke, and a double risk of heart failure. While another study stated, obese persons are at increased risk for adverse long-term outcomes even in the absence of metabolic abnormalities, suggesting that there is no healthy pattern of increased weight.
And I'll go a step further, and I'll say that even carrying extra muscle mass is not necessarily beneficial for longevity. Now, when I say extra muscle mass, I don't mean within a healthy range. I'm talking about like those bodybuilders who put on lots of extra muscle. Some of them pass at a younger age because they're carrying so much weight. Even if it is muscle, they're carrying like an extra 100 pounds of body weight, extra 100 pounds of muscle, and it just taxes the cardiovascular system so much that they get enlarged hearts and they end up with problems. Now, I'm not saying working out is unhealthy, but like if you abuse steroids, you get really huge. That's not healthy either.
I just plucked a couple of quotes there, but I reviewed many papers to come to this conclusion. In an interview with Dr. Arya Sharma, founder and scientific director of Obesity Canada, he agreed that someone who is obese can still be metabolically healthy, even if they're outside the normal weight range. But Sharma cautions that sooner or later, in most obese people, their weight will become a health problem. It really is no different than smoking. Not every smoker will suffer a smoking-related disease, but enough of them will that we need to warn people that this is dangerous. Just because you're not suffering from health problems right now does not mean that you're not at an increased risk than if you were smaller. And I think it's this flawed, metabolically healthy obese idea that has led to this wave of you can't tell a person's health by their appearance more than anything else.
Everyone is all of a sudden a doctor and they think that they can look at your photos and determine your worth and your happiness and your perceived health.
In many instances, this is true. Just because someone is of normal weight does not mean that they live a healthy lifestyle or that they have a clean bill of health. But if someone weighs 300 plus pounds like Tess Holliday and has no plans of even acknowledging that it's a problem, then it is fair to say that your weight may indeed disqualify you from being considered healthy. And you can most definitely infer just from looking at them that at their current state, they are at an increased risk of disease. Now, does that mean you should say that kind of thing to people? No, of course not. That's really, really rude. But anyone suggesting that there is some alternate universe where being 300 plus pounds at 5'5" is healthy is hurting people, whether that's the intention or not.
And if Tess really is 5'5", because I don't think she is, but if she really is 5'5", then she's a lot heavier than she says. Because I thought that she was even shorter, and that was like maybe how her weight was justified. But she's actually even heavier than she says if she's actually 5'5", because she looks a lot heavier.
Because your health markers are not demonstrating in this exact moment that you are not unhealthy does not mean that they will not in the future. It's like fat activists just forget that we all get old. I don't know.
Oh, and we're almost running out of time, almost perfectly set. At 10:30, Skinny Queen is going to be coming on. I'm going to be ending my show right around 10:30 and encourage everyone to go check out Skinny Queen Reacts. I'm going to be stopping by there for the after party. So, going to be here just for a little bit longer.
We are now entering the part of the video where I openly attack Lindo Bacon's character.
At least.
As I mentioned earlier, it seemed to me that Lindo Bacon's presentation style was pretty frivolous and oddly unscientific for someone who's making such serious waves online. So who is Lindo Bacon exactly?
Yeah, 5'5" is like an average height. I don't think Tess is even average. I think she's below average height from what I've seen.
In November 2014, an article appeared in the Chicago Tribune titled, "Can You Be Overweight and Healthy?" Now, in this article, Lindo puts forth various ideas, and the other doctors pretty much just take turns shutting her down. But the real tea happened afterwards. James Fell, the journalist who wrote the article for the Chicago Tribune, wrote an article on his website telling a little bit more of the backstory to the quote, challenging interview that he had with Lindo. And as a result of this, Lindo Bacon actually complained about this article to the Chicago Tribune until they issued a correction, and then promptly tweeted, "No, I don't endorse much attributed to me in Chicago Trib. Let's call for responsible journalism." James Fell then sent a reply.
From what I can tell, they were at the time they recorded the videos, but no longer. The Lindo Bacon individual. So just leave it at that.
Reminding Lindo that I had a voice recording of our conversation and that the quotes were accurate and in context. Upon finding out that he had receipts and that Lindo could be exposed, they wrote 2 apology emails immediately. So the reason I felt it appropriate to include this story is that it's quite suggestive of the type of person that Lindo Bacon is. And in particular, it demonstrates that Lindo has a history of making a claim and then retracting it when it doesn't paint them in the best light. The technique Lindo likes to employ, in my opinion of course, is called doublespeak. And actually the YouTube channel What I've Learned did an entire video on it.
Doublespeak is language designed to evade responsibility.
I want to stop more, but I want to get done by 10:30. But I'll just say, where was it here? Yeah, my mother's only like 5'2", 5'1". My father wasn't especially tall, but I ended up basically as tall as him. So I've got short genes. If I have a child with a short woman, that kid's gonna be really short. Even though I'm not short, I'm like one of the taller ones in my family at 5'10".
Make the unpleasant appear pleasant, the unattractive appear attractive. Basically, it's language designed to mislead while pretending not to.
Lindo is constantly making these statements that could be construed as having double meanings. The statement, "Little evidence supports that weight is the primary cause of many diseases for which it is routinely blamed," is intended to mean you can't conclusively prove causality with epidemiological studies, and also excess fat does not cause disease. Just like the statement, "The science is clear, body fat is not the killer it's made out to be," means the link between mortality and obesity isn't as clear-cut as the media portrays it to be. And also, excess body fat doesn't kill people. By speaking in this way, Lindo can simultaneously convince someone who doesn't know how epidemiological studies work that obesity is not dangerous, but also save their ass in case someone that does takes a look at this and says, well, why would you say that? Especially when the link between obesity and disease is so well documented that there's not a lot of room to argue that.
Period, full stop.
I don't think there's really too much more left to say on this subject. Fact of it. It's basically over. Kiana is just kind of reiterating that the statements made by Lindo Bacon, how they appear to be very scientifically inaccurate, but Lindo's couched them with doublespeak, probably for legal protection. Tess Holliday kind of got us here. For anybody who's come in late, Tess Holliday was the first portion of this. And also just to remind everyone that Tess Holliday is anorexic. At least that's what she says she is. I do not believe it. I do not accept it. I challenge her on that. And if you want to look up a clip of her going on some news show and saying it, where she goes completely unchallenged, and the host just nods and smiles and says, oh, that's so horrible for you, or, oh, yes, I can clearly see that. Yeah, look that up. I would show it, but YouTube has been crazy with striking stuff down. I don't want to get this video struck down. If for some reason we do end early, I'm going to end at 10:30. By the way, somebody let me know when Skinny comes on so I can run straight into her show.
Epidemiology.
Lindo's actions demonstrate to me that health is not the primary goal of health at every size. If this were true, there'd be no need to hide behind vague language and cherry-pick data. You would fully explain your points. If only out of passion for the fact that you believed that this is true and that fat people were being, unfairly vilified for something that is not unhealthy. And this certainly helps to explain why Lindo's mission statement does not mention health at all. Lindo is fostering a more just world, not a healthy one. Why? Because health at every size is not a health movement, it is entirely political. Tess Holliday wants you to believe, and probably wants to believe herself, that she's healthy. Lindo Bacon and Health at Every Size want you to believe that obesity is healthy. And Cosmo and every other woke corporate entity don't care what you believe as long as you buy their stuff. They all have very different reasons for doing what they do, but the result is the same. People are truly beginning to believe that obesity is not very dangerous, despite the pile of evidence suggesting otherwise and the very flimsy evidence to suggest the opposite. These women find Tess and they feel validated because she looks beautiful, even at 300 pounds. Then Health at Every Size chimes in and tells them that, well, not only can you be beautiful, but you can be healthy at that weight. Being morbidly obese doesn't mean you're unhealthy or have a problem with food. You're just built that way, and it's only diet culture and fat phobia telling you otherwise. And this is a very seductive alternative after spending a lifetime trying.
This is a great point she makes here, that a lot of people have struggled very, very truly with their body weight, and maybe they've been mistreated because of their appearance. That happens. Some people, just because somebody's heavy doesn't mean you should treat them poorly. And some people have been mistreated, so they retreat socially, they withdraw, and they find these online communities that accept them. Unfortunately, these communities are not healthy. These communities encourage unhealthy behavior. These Healthy at Any Size online communities, instead of saying, hey, we understand that you've had poor experiences with eating and you've been treated poorly because of your appearance, because of your shape. Let's work on getting you healthier psychologically, physically. No. Instead, it's about enabling you to be unhealthy. And if you try to get healthy, you get kicked out of the group.
Trying and failing to lose weight and not feeling like your body is beautiful or worthy or anything like that. And you can see why otherwise rational people can get pulled into this alternate reality where they're being lied to by Health at Every Size and Tess Holliday. Oh my God.
It's an appealing lie. It's an appealing lie. I could see why people, especially if they've gotten so heavy that they feel that getting to a healthy size is not an option. It's an appealing, comforting lie to think, well, I'm just as healthy. And the only issue is people don't accept me. And it's everybody else's problem, not me. I should eat as much as I want. And it's not this unhealthy food that's the cause of my poor health. It's the stress that I get from people who don't accept that I want to eat and be so large. It's such an appealing lie. It's a comforting lie that of course people are going to accept it.
That was a long one. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was quite the undertaking, more than I thought it would be. I actually researched obesity for like 2 weeks before starting this video, and then I literally didn't use like any of that research in this video, so at least I'm confident that obesity is bad for you now. Anyway, I hope to have another video out for you guys in less than like 5 weeks. So I will see you in the next one. And if you are watching this far and you are not subscribed, yeah, hit the subscribe button and like. And yeah, thank you for watching. See you in the next one.
Researchers imply that being fat is a cause of certain things, but that's not what their studies show. A big mistake that is made is not differentiating between factors that are correlative and those that are causative.
Well, I love how they say that and then proceed their entire, Kiana Doherty here. I guess maybe it's Doherty. I don't know if the C is silent or not. But yeah, I thought this was a really excellent video, very well done. I think that Kiana seems to be an intelligent woman, makes good videos, at least from this one. So I'm going to check out some more of her videos. I would say go take a look at them. I don't want to give an endorsement without watching them, but this was certainly a good one. So go check her out. Maybe her other videos are just as good. I really like this. Okay, folks. That is winding us down. I did have one more vid I was going to cover, but we're at 10:30, and I know that Skinny's about to come on, and that is going to be the after party. So let's just go through the chat. And also, please leave a like. Please hit that bell if you'd like to see more content like this. If you haven't enjoyed this, maybe let me know why. As long as it's reasonable, I'm willing to listen. Maybe it's something we can change. Okay, somebody else mentioned that she had lost weight. I did not know Kiana used to be obese. She looks fantastic now. And it sounds like she's got a really good head on her shoulders as well. Looks good and got an intelligent brain. I'm glad you enjoyed it, QZ. Today was a lot less humorous than most of my streams. A lot of my streams are very much about joking and making fun of things, and I enjoy that. But this was more of a health-oriented stream. Hopefully this is one that will have more of a long-term value. People can come back to this, watch the replay. I certainly plan to go back to this topic in the future, and I hope that this was a good introduction for people who are not familiar with this topic. For people who are, hopefully this was a great chance to expand some of what you know. I loved getting other people's takes on this. The people in the chat here, you had very interesting stories, insights. Hopefully people had a chance to learn about Tess Holliday. You know, QZ, I like to think Foodie will watch, but from what I've learned, she only seems to be concerned with watching stuff about herself. And this video is not about her. So, I mean, the beginning is, maybe that'll trick her into watching the rest. I don't know. I think she secretly wants to be Tess Holliday. I think that's Foodie's role model. She would love to just be a fake fashion model and pretend to work out once a month. All right, everyone. Well, go check out Skinny Queen. I don't know if she's running late or what, but she's supposed to be on in just a minute. So go check her out. And I will be on again, same time next week, 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. You're very welcome, everyone. Glad you enjoyed it. Hopefully Foodie will watch. Yeah, Kiana is very sensible. Yeah, Foodie will only watch things that confirm her biases, but I think Kiana uses a few too many big words for her, so she might not realize that this show is actually against healthy at any size. She might not understand that. She might think that we're praising bacon because Foodie's not that insightful. Okay, everybody. Hopefully you had a great time. I will be over at Skinny Queens hanging out in the chat, and see you around. Good night, everybody.